Hello and welcome back to Lord of the Collections. This is our year in review 2023. It's been a great year, the anniversary of Return of the King. I'm here with my co-host Valkris, and we have a special guest here today, Josh, aka LSR from thewondering.net and Collecting the Precious.
Hey guys,
So,
thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
yeah, it was so. This year we had quite a bit come out from Weta for the Lord of the Rings line. They branched into some other stuff, but we'll just keep this Lord of the Rings for tonight. They had the mini Treebeard, if you guys remember, the mini Sauron, mini Eowyn, the mini Balrog, the mini Fell Beast, and then we had a couple of mini helms and the Rohan mini helmet, the Witch King alternative helmet, and I think there was the Hobbit Nazgul helmet. So what were your kind of? I'll ask you guys, what was your favorite mini that was released this year?
Ooh, probably Treebeard. It looks really cool. And like as you guys have seen me talk about like on the message more on the flame, I didn't get the Master Collection, despite my well-known reaction to it seeing it come. Uh, oh, that's one of those that I really like. So I'll probably track that down because I don't have the bust. So I'll probably track that down. That was a really good one. Um, I'll get the Balrog at some point because it's. I mean, obviously, I talk about it when Jim and I sit down for our podcast. That I love the Balrog, and then the Fell Beast. Those would be my kind of my gold, silver, bronze type, setup.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Val?
Myself, it's a tough one. Yeah, I'll be upfront. I haven't ordered any of them. It's kind of Josh, if you watch my video, you've seen how full my room is.
Yeah.
Even people like, oh well, 110 piece is so small. Surely there's room. Yeah, maybe, but stuff's gonna start falling off the shelves. Don't want that. So, oh man. Okay, I'll put it in terms of what I would like to get if I could. Top would probably be the Fell Beast. I don't never got the original, which I always liked, sort of intended to. The prices are kind of reasonable on it, but I kind of had a feeling they would eventually get around to making another one. And despite people asking for like a 1/6, I'm like, you're nuts. You know how big that would be? So yeah, we've seen how big Guahir is, and the Fell Beast would just be equally as monstrous. So that would have to be a pretty big risk on Weta's part to come out with that. So that's my number one. Let's see. Paid a lot of attention to the other ones. Treebeard looks cool, but I mean, I have the master, and so it's really hard not to feel sorry for the little guy. Don't get me wrong. I'm really happy that they made one finally for people that wanted to own something other than the old bus, which is also really hard to find and expensive. And obviously, the master collection is pretty much out of reach for most folks. Um, I know people probably wanted them to be a little bigger, but I think the 110 is a good sweet spot in terms of affordability and just having a full head to toe representation of the character. So that would be my number two. Let's see. What else was there? Barad-dûr, Eowyn.
So there was the mini Treebeard, mini Sauron, Eowyn,
Sauron, right?
mini Balrog, mini Fell Beast, and then there was a couple of mini helms, the Witch King alternative helm, Rohan helm.
So keeping it to the characters, I'd say probably the Balrog would be my third. Far more impressed with the pose than I was with the classic series one. I think for me that was a bit of a miss on Weta's part. I love the Balrog. The creature design is insanely awesome. I had the original baby Rog from the Sideshow Weta days, but once I never got the really old. What's the term
Daddy Rog.
for
the Daddy Rog?
Daddy Rog? Yeah. So I never got him because I got into collecting just after he came out. But I have what's the big new one called? Newer one.
Uh,
If
I
these
don't know.
collector terminology is
uh,
The
I
one
don't.
that isn't the daddy rug.
Yeah,
yeah, big rug. I don't know.
2.0. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good him. And anyways, I did eventually sell the baby one just because I needed space, and I thought that was superior to the classic series one. But I think the new mini is really cool. So as for the helms, I mean, I like them all. I'm not a big fan of alternate concepts because they're just usually stuff, obviously, that didn't make the final cut. But I think the alternate Witch King helm is a perfect stand-in for something that I've seen artwork for Morgoth wearing. That's probably where they drew the inspiration for that look. I think the concept was dropped because it looked too much like Sauron's helm. They didn't want to confuse viewers. I think that was the story behind that. But anyways, I like all four. I'd like to get them because I collect the mini helms. And yeah, so those are my picks.
I think the mini Witch King helm, I think a lot of that was also inspired by a lot of John Howe paintings, and including the one behind you.
Yeah.
It's kind of got that bucket helmet, and
Yeah.
I think that was a lot of the inspiration behind that design. It's tough to pick a favorite. You know, they are all pretty good. You know,
Mhm.
and I do intend to collect or get most of them. It's funny, the Weta Mini line almost has like a cult following, and once they're sold out, they're like impossible to get. You know,
Yeah.
you see like the Moria Orc or like Arwen or Strider in the Prancing Poe, and they go for like 200, 200, $300 now, almost like on secondary, and it's like that's almost
I
like
think Weta
the
doesn't.
high end.
They must not produce a lot of them. The runs, even though they're open editions,
Yeah,
they're not
Yeah.
very big. You have some insight on that, Josh?
Well, I mean, they're obviously they're OEs, and I know like kind of with Minas Tirith. I mean, once they hit a certain point, they shut down that that particular run of that statue. So they and it could be. I think a lot of times that you've seen. I think it's the kind of the same way too with some of the old Sideshow Weta stuff, where like Sam and Bill is an open edition, but he goes for a boatload because it only sold X number, when it was first out. Well, they
Yeah.
shut down that line and moved on to whatever was next as the next film came out, the line became more popular. So we know it's pretty limited. I would expect, because we know how collectors are in general. There's a niche collector for everything, whether or not it's the minis, whether or not it's 6 scale, whether it's quarter scale, half scale, life size, whatever. There's a niche. For everything. And my guess is there's not a lot produced. They shut it down, and so when you can't find Aragorn at the Prancing Pony, it's because they only made 4,000 of them. Well, now 4,000, 5,000 more people want it. Well, there's only 4,000 available. So that's my guess is that they just quit making them. They've moved on to the next thing in the wheel of collectibles being made. But
another factor
actually,
in that.
You said that, I'm going, what ones do I have that if I need to sell, that I could sell out my mini line to pay for all that bigger stuff that I've got coming over the next few months?
I'm really interested in knowing like how many of the open edition stuff. Wouldn't count limited because they will make the number that's
Right.
that the edition is pegged at, plus probably like a certain extra percentage for breakage and defects and whatnot. But it'd be interesting to know what their internal number, and obviously they'll never tell us these things, trade secrets and whatnot. But how many of any given open editions are like available to be manufactured at a given time? Let's say like there's 10 statues, be it helms, minis, 1/6 environments, doesn't matter what, how many they can currently have in production at any given time. And then like as soon as the oldest one drops off, they can bring in another one and that then stays. You know what I mean? Like
how many the factory can produce at any given time.
yeah.
And I will say too, I have tried over the years, especially when Sideshow and Weta were together doing stuff, because I mean, I had developed several really good contacts at Sideshow over the years, and tried to get them to tell me like, hey, how many Striders how many salmon bills were made? I mean,
Mhm.
and they're like, of course, it was always, we can't say, or we can't find the records, and I understood. They weren't going to tell me trade secrets, and I get that. But I did try to find out, like,
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, when you have a statue like that Moria Orc that goes for like $300,
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
tiny.
like 100 when it first came out. It's like Salmon Bill. It's like Salmon Bill was 125. Well, now he's like $900. Well,
Yeah.
were produced because it clearly wasn't that many, because you hardly ever see them pop up anymore.
Mhm.
So
They
Another
weren't around for very long. Yeah.
another
Yeah, because
factor I think about the scarcity of the mini line is they don't really take up a lot of space on your shelf, right?
right.
So
No, they're tiny for sure.
yeah, and so if people are like, oh, I don't have the room for this, or I'm moving, or for whatever reason why someone would sell a 1/6 scale statue, they don't sell the mini statues because, well, they just don't take up that much room, and so they're not hard to bring with you if you're moving, or if you're crunched for space. It's not hard to find a spot for it. It's the same thing with the rings, like the Hobbit One Ring that never shows up for sale because, well, it doesn't take up much space, and
Well, and that's one thing I've mentioned when Jim and I have sat down and talked with people before, or just in reviews and stuff, which I haven't done in ages, but I need to get back to. But it's like with the mini line when I've talked about them, they're great. They're a great niche price, really, considering where the cost of statue collecting is at. They don't take up a lot of space. And you can get several of them on just a standard bookshelf. So
mhm.
I understand why they're really popular, because they're much improved over when Weta first started doing them. If you just look, I mean, just looking at the different ones that have come out. So yeah, I can understand. They shut the production line down quick. They're well made, and they're pretty affordable. Well, that usually gives you a nice little
recipe.
mixture of,
Yeah,
it's going to be expensive down the road. So
yeah.
even with their OEs, I always kind of suggest to people, don't put it off too long, because that OE can become an LE real quick, and then you're paying $500 for something that was $100 when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you get into,
Yeah, I almost feel like if the numbers were known, and this is like the stuff you think that this can't be real, it's stuff in movies, but that somebody would like, oh, so they made that many, eh? And somebody goes and hunts down as many as they can and smashes them all and
Right.
keeps one. So
keeps
that's
one,
like
was the last one. Yeah.
Yeah.
now it's rare.
Or
Stick.
someone, something like we used to do a little some back in the days, which I was guilty of, buying a few, like, I bought, golly, what did I have? I bought, like, when they ring rates on Steed they had, Sideshow found some or whatever. Sorry, I'm sidetracking. I do this on our podcast too, so just yell at me if I do it. um I bought like 4 of those things. I had like 4 of them in my house, and my parents were like, what is wrong with you, and where are you putting these damn things?
Did you tell them there's 9 of them in the movie?
Yeah.
So it's,
Oh, 9, guys, I'm gonna have 9. Oh my god, they don't.
Okay, Ben.
But I mean, I sold them, but it was, I mean, people did stupid stuff like that. I mean, I bought 4 ring race at the time, and the thing is at the time they were, what were they, 275 a piece, I think. So I mean,
same prices.
yeah, it's like,
Do you think that's why Weta put a limit on the like what individuals can purchase at a time? Isn't it like 2, I think? It wasn't because people were using that to figure out how many were left in stock. It was
people were doing that on board. I noticed where, like, somehow, and I don't know how I'm sure there's easy math in it, and I'm overthinking it by a lot, but I'm assuming they went in and added as max number as they could in their cart just to see how many were available, at least at that time on the site. Now, who knows whether or not that number was accurate, but I also think these companies went to the limit on some of them too, because people were doing like
trying to get into a business.
Trying to fund, which, by the way, for anybody out there watching this, don't do. That's how I got myself in trouble when I was in my 20s. It's a terrible ass idea. It's not financially sound. Don't do it. Seriously, it's a bad idea.
You hear that, kids?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I do tell my kids at school that, like, when I'm like, don't ever try to work the internet to make money unless you really know what you're doing, because yeah, anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think they do that to keep people from buying 3 or 4 of them and setting on them and trying to create, um, an inflated market, which,
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
is, like I said, it's just not smart in general. Those boxes are too damn huge to be sitting around the house, anyways.
I know. Tell me about it.
So getting back to, I think my favorite on the mini line, it's a tough choice. I think would be, I think the Balrog, but I none of them. There's no clear winner on that one for me. Like I like
Mhm.
most of them.
You
The
have to
Treebeard is great, and like we've said earlier, I think it's a home run by Weta to do that. Newer collectors and even older collectors can now add Treebeard to their collection,
Mhm.
and I hope they do more of the Ents in the mini line so you can get an Ent moot. I think that would be very wise of Weta to do.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
But it's a great line to do that for that reason.
Yeah, because people don't have the space to have 1/6 scale Ents. Like 5 1/6
Yeah.
scale Ents. No, nobody's got the space for that, or like only a handful of collectors. But most
Yeah, maybe
collectors
your
can
band,
do,
have a whole
yeah,
house like, dedicated to your
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But like most collectors have the space to do 5 6 mini Ents. You can do that,
Yeah.
and so I really hope they do that. I think it would be very smart if they do, and if they do that, that mini Treebeard's he's gonna skyrocket in price because
Yeah, that's one of those, like, I for that reason I've got to pick up sometime first half of next year, because for that reason I don't want I mean, I know it's, I don't know, what is it, like $120 or something like that, $140.
Yep.
Um, I don't want to kick, miss on that and then go pay $300 for a 1/10 scale Treebeard when
Yeah.
I half the price when you've got
Mhm.
Gilgalad coming out, and obviously they previewed the Grey Havens and stuff like that. So there's way too many bigger pieces coming out that my pocketbook is going to be unpaid for.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of that too. It's like I know there's bigger fish to fry. There's bigger fish coming up, and so I
Mhm.
put off the mini, and then I keep putting them off, and now I'm like, oh, geez, I'm 5 minis behind.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Did we
So
forget Radagast? Like, when did he come out?
I don't know.
Is he even shipped yet?
Yes, I have, because at Weta at Comic Con this year had a bunch of meetings. They weren't there for a booth, um, but they stopped at our booth and did some signings and stuff. And when they got done, one of my friends at Weta, they had a Radagast mini on their meeting tables, and they gave it to me to take home. So I have a
Yeah.
Radagast mini,
Mhm.
sitting on one of my boxes with another statue came in next to my
Mhm.
Xbox, so I get to look at it when I'm playing my Xbox.
Nice. So
And he
what do
looked,
you guys think was the most underrated mini that was released this year? That one's tough because they were all pretty good.
yeah, I don't know
Hmm.
that, I don't know, I don't know that you, to me, would say necessarily they're underrated, that any of them are underrated, because they're all, like you said, they're very good.
Mhm.
Uh, I just like the idea, I guess, and just in general, I like the idea of the line. I mean, as I've said before here and in videos and stuff like that, I like the idea of the line just being around for collectors that need space and are on
Mhm.
a smarter budget, maybe, or tighter budget. So,
Mhm.
whether or not it's a Treebeard, or maybe they couldn't afford the big Sauron that just came out that they just did, or
Yeah.
they don't, like Valkyrie said, I don't have the original Fell Beast statue either, and he's
Mhm.
kind of more expensive than what I want to buy with everything else that's out there. So that's an affordable option. To me, that's the line itself is underrated for the flexibility that it gives you as a
Right.
collector.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a tough
100%.
one picking on that one too, because it's like, well, but I thought the new Sauron, the mini Sauron, is really, and the Fell Beast. I think is because of the time the Fell Beast was released, I had kind of forgotten about it, to be honest.
Mhm.
And and then when I was kind of looking up what it released this year, it's like, oh yeah, the Fell Beast came out this year. I think that's
Mhm.
and the Sauron is a great pick for those who don't have room or the budget for the 1/6 Sauron, the two that are out there, or the
Yeah.
premium sideshow one. And I like the pose. They went with him, when he's creating the ring, and in Samothrace. So I like the pose on it. I think it's a great underrated line, and it kind of got overshadowed a bit by the release of some classic series statues not too long after. So
Yeah. Like for me, like if I had a nitpick with the line, is maybe more in the decision to release certain characters too close to their 1/6 counterparts. Like we just had the 20th anniversary 1/6 Sauron, and then they released the mini not that long after. What's another example? We just had the classic series Balrog, and now we have the mini. So on the one hand, like you said, Josh, it's great because not everyone, unfortunately, has the space or can afford the regular size statues. So you have an opportunity to pick them up and have that character at a much lower price and space. But on the other hand, it's like it's that FOMO, fear of missing out. Like you, classic series Balrog comes out and like, okay, I gotta get that because I don't have a Balrog. So you kind of feel that pressure to get it because you know it's not going to be around forever. Eventually, one day it'll be gone, and then not that long thereafter, the mini gets released, which we have no idea was coming because
Right.
Weta doesn't operate that way in terms of letting us know stuff with a lot of time. But then you're like, oh man, I could have, I didn't really need the 1/6 per se. I just wanted to have a Balrog and I can't afford the older one. So I could have gotten the little guy, but now what do I do? Do I get the little guy as well? Do I sell the classic series ones perhaps at a loss because you could still get it from the retailers at normal price? Like, what do I do? So I wish maybe they gave the characters a bit more time to breathe in between. Like, oh, I just got the 20th anniversary Sauron. Do I need the little guy? So it's not like what is asking us to double dip. We all have our own free wills and we can buy what we want. I can say no to that statue and yes to that one. But if they really wanted to maximize their sales and kind of play into our like gotta have it all temptations that we all share, maybe if they let a bit more space in between and be like, yeah, it's been a while since that Sauron came out. I've had him on my shelf for a few years. I'm used to it now. Oh, here's a mini. That's cool. I'm gonna grab it. So
Do you think with like the Sauron, and I don't remember the time frame how long a difference it was, but with like the Sauron, do you think it could be a situation where, because obviously they do the pre-order windows now on the limited pieces. Do you think it's a Sauron, the limited version had the pre-order window for here, it's sold out, nobody can track it down except for for obviously a few retailers that might still have a few available. Issue in the mini because
mhm.
missed out on the limited, so now you can capture more sales with the mini version. I wonder. I think with Sauron, I could see something like that because which would be smart. You got people that are bummed they missed out on the big version. Maybe they can't go get it at A store, B
Yeah.
store, C store. But here's a mini. It looks really cool. It's got the dagger, which
Consolation prize.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
better than not. But I
yeah,
don't.
that's a good point.
I'm just more spitballing in my head. Like I could see in
No, no,
certain
no. There's
maybe
definitely two philosophies at play here. It just depends on where kind of,
yeah.
Yeah.
obviously as a point of personal preference, 1/6 is kind of my size. I mean, I do have minis, but I generally get them to represent things that I didn't necessarily have, like, the Moria Orc. I don't have any of the old Sideshow Weta ones, unfortunately. So that was kind of like, this is my great way to own a representation of that particular character. And there was like many, many years since those old Sideshow Weta statues until the new Weta Mini came out. So that to me was perfect. But um, I don't know where I was going with that, but you kind of feel, yeah, if it was one of those folks that, let's say I missed out on the big Sauron for whatever reason, and then the little guy, it would come out, and yeah, it's like, okay, now I get to own one, but I'd still kind of like feel like, here I got the little consolation prize versus the folks that got the big one.
Well,
But you also
it's
know that it's going to be a very long time now before Weta will release another 1/6 Sauron if they ever do.
yeah.
And let's face it, there have been a lot of companies jump into the pool of late. So
Mhm.
there are alternatives out there. If you're not just, strictly Weta only, like myself, you can you can find other versions of the character, new and old, at even different scales. So yeah, we're definitely spoiled for choice. But anyways, those are my thoughts on
As someone who essentially is getting the consolation Treebeard, I can tell you it's not so bad a feeling. At the end of the day, I'm excited to get Treebeard in my collection.
When I get
It should be the new CS series. We should tell Weta consolation series line.
What were you saying, Josh?
I said I'm right there. I'm right there with you. So
Yeah.
like I said, I mean that's where I'm at with Treebeard. As much as I would like to have had that original one, and as I said before, I had it in my cart. I mean, I was literally in my driveway, had it in my cart, sat in my car for like 10 minutes. I'm like, am I not gonna order this? And it just didn't. So I'm saving a little bit of money, I guess, in that instance, and still getting the character. Plus, I was able to get other stuff. So I guess it works out in the wash. But yeah.
But you know what? They're gonna come up with more Ents to do an Ent moot, and then Val's gonna have to buy
everyone
anyway. So
I hope they're all master collection pieces, if nothing else, just because I want to see the poor soul that actually buys all of them, because they'll look amazing, but you better have a house for them.
Oh yeah.
So this year, Weta released a fair amount of 1/6 It's in the classic series. There were some surprising ones, I thought, and some really great ones. And so they had the classic series Frodo, they had the classic series Lurtz, the Fountain Guard, Alessar, Arwen, and Saruman. What were your guys' favorite out of the classic series, and what was your most underrated?
You want me to go? Okay, I'll go. Well, I mean, it's hard. I just got Frodo and Lurtz the other day. I will say Frodo looks really amazing. I think it's probably the best Elijah Wood likeness that I think that's been done. It's really great.
Oh yeah.
I haven't gotten a chance to open Lurtz, just stuff going on, and I haven't had a chance to opening. But I'm sure it looks great from the pictures I've seen of it. It looks great. I'm my Gondor bias makes me say I really love that Elisar, or King Aragorn, I think is what they're calling it, but it's Elisar. I really love it. I'm really partial to it. I haven't ordered him yet because had Helm's Deep, Lurtz, which you guys saw, I tried to cancel, and it literally didn't get canceled. They tried to hold the shipment, and it literally got all the way to my house. I just told them, just like, I'll just keep it, no big deal. And then Frodo. So December was pretty hardcore as far as getting hit. I had to use Weta dollars on Helm's Deep to make it cheaper. So Aragorn and Arwen I haven't ordered yet. I'm gonna order those in January. So Elisar, I would say 1. Sorry, long story short. 2, I'd say Frodo. It's really, really good. Just the likeness is really fantastic. And then actually I would put Arwen at 3. I mean, you could flip flop too. The likeness I think looks really good, at least from what we've seen in the preview stuff. Obviously, don't assume it comes out like that in production, at least with the closeness to the likeness and stuff. Is really cool. It looks really pretty. That's probably the version of her that I've been waiting for as far as a collector goes. So I'm happy to have that. It goes with my Gondor setup that I'm going to be putting together in my display. So I would put those 3 in my gold, silver, bronze listing. But it was a hell of a year for them for that classic series. They did. I mean, I don't think it's kind of like with the miniatures. I don't think that any of them are bad. Underrated. Maybe I know I put her at 3, but I think Arwen will probably be the one that people will leave off a list or whatever, because I think they gravitate more towards like characters like Saruman and Lurtz and Aragorn and maybe a Frodo. But she looks really, really good.
She does.
So, um, I would say, even though I put her at 3, I would say she would probably be the one of that lot that I say is going to be underrated, especially down the line. I think that's one of those people are going to think, I should have bought that, and they're going to go track it down, and now she's going to cost more because
Yep.
maybe as many weren't produced or whatever. So I would say that
Yeah.
that's how I would go with it.
That's fair.
For myself, I mean, I'm not going to count the Fountain Guard because I have the limited one on pre-order. So
Yeah, same. I've got the
yeah,
3. That's a whole. I'm not counting him as a classic series because mine is not.
yeah, yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like I think I wish Weta would kind of catch on to that trend and do that more because this is now what the second statue they've done with this with because previously we had Bilbo again, which I also have the limited. But I think it's great to give people the opportunity to own. I mean, the heart of the piece is always the character. The more the environment, the merrier. Like the Bag End or the White Tree just add an amazing dimension to the pieces themselves. But it's about the character. And so to give people the opportunity to have a version that's just focuses on that, it's simpler and a heck of a lot cheaper. Um, I hope that the brain trust that Weta kind of catches on the fact that people really like this, and hopefully that the classic versions are selling well enough that it means, yeah, I can't afford the big guy, but I'll definitely take the little guy. So I want to see more of that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't pass up that White Tree. So Fountain Guard aside, um, actually, I think my top pick would be Arwen. I think the character has been underserved for a very, very long time. Other than the way I have the old Sideshow Weta piece, which is, I think, middling quality, but she's kind of filled that gap for many, many years to have that representation of her. And she pairs beautifully with the older King Elisar, which I also have like right next to her in my collection. I never got the Arwen at the Ford piece because I just, as many of you know, I'm kind of a book purist, and I didn't like. I've learned to accept the inclusion of the scene in the movies over the years. I've come to peace and terms with a lot of the stuff and knowing how necessary it was for the film medium. But I didn't quite like the face and the statue and that. So for those two reasons, I decided not to get it at the time. And I always kind of feeling that they would come around. A lot of people have been asking for years for a coronation Arwen, and I think Weta heard and they knocked it out of the park. I think she looks amazing, and it's about time that we got that representation of her. And the pose is just so perfect and serene, and it's beautiful. I love it, and I think she will be a great upgrade to the old one. Second for me would be Frodo. Frodo is another one of those characters that, for some reason, I mean, for the importance that he holds to the tale, I think he's been severely, shorted in terms of statue representations in Weta because he's always like a sidekick. That's something else going on in the piece. Like he's there with Gandalf, he's there with the Witch King, he's there with, Frodo and Sam, sorry, Gollum and Sam in the Dead Marshes piece. There's always something else going on, and
Well, this
Frodo never has an opportunity to.
his, isn't
I'm
it?
sorry.
It's only the second solo piece of his, right? Because you had the original and the Sideshow
Yeah.
Weta line, and this. So yeah, I mean,
Correct. To my knowledge,
I think that's
yeah.
only. I mean, he's very.
And that's my point. And how long have the statues been coming out? Like over 20 years, and it's only now the second solo statue that we get of Frodo. And I've heard I don't know if it was Daniel or someone that said that, historically the Hobbit pieces on their own don't sell too well. They're not popular for some reason. I always thought, man, that's just I can't comprehend it, but the sales always tell the story. So they got to go with yeah. So I'm glad they finally took the risk. I think it because obviously there's a place for him in the Am and Hen line. That's the one that they chose to go with, and I'm hoping fervently that they come out with a Sam that goes with it. And also, like, even if they put them on the same base, to have a Merry and Pippin like throwing rocks during the attack, because they belong more to the battle scene than to the river scene. So, anyways, uh, Frodo looks great. It's a perfect moment in the movie. I actually just watched the video from his name's Alfred, but he does the
Oh yeah, I know Alfred. Yep.
he does all the product reviews because he gets stuff pretty quick, and I thought that was a great statue. It looks really good. Number three. Um,
See, this is what I
what's
mean.
left?
This is how you know when they're doing well with what they're doing. Like when him and Ha over, like you feel like you're splitting hairs and trying to,
Oh yeah.
as I say
Yeah.
to an old guy splitting hairs and stuff, but
Yeah, there's still a few back here.
They've
I see
they've
him
just
on
been
camera,
knocking
I
them
need
out
to
of the
shave my
park.
head. I actually do have a few going, but yeah, no, I get you. Sorry.
Yeah. No, no. Yeah, I didn't really pay attention to Lurtz or Saruman, I'll be honest. I got the original Lemonhen Lurtz. I think he's perfect. And I actually thought there was a bit of an odd choice for Weta to come out with another one, but the pose is different enough. And again, it's one of those, like, the other one came out so long ago that a lot of people, he's come and gone. And this is just a chance for people to own. Here he is again, different pose, so it doesn't feel repetitive or anything like that. And obviously they couldn't just make the same statue again. So, but not every statue is for everyone. So that one wasn't for me. Same with Saruman. Got two of them already. So again, it's always nice there's always that temptation. Oh, that looks so good. And it's so superior to the previous ones, but do I really want to go there? And then what do I do with the old ones? Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so I just kind of go like this. Happy is there for everyone else. I'm gonna pretend he doesn't exist and move on.
And the reason I
I'm
ordered
not gonna be like Tyler and go crazy and order the one with the bomb and
Too
I,
late.
can't,
now, that's why I was
can't
getting ready.
help himself.
That's the one. That's the when I saw him
Only reason.
beforehand, and the only reason I ended up ordering one, I thought he looked really cool. I mean, he looked really well done. But the inclusion of the bomb was kind of like, ooh, that's a neat setup to have.
It is cool, yeah.
If the bomb hadn't been part of an option, if it had been one of those, hey, we talked about doing this, what would you have ordered it? I would have said, yeah, I probably would have skipped Saruman because, like you, I've got a couple of versions. I'm good having, but the bomb is kind of a neat combination thing that, again, I mean, whether or not you hate to have to go down that road if you have to sell them, but if I have to sell them, it's not just the classic series Saruman. It's the classic series Saruman with the bomb and being able to do
to
that.
me that just shows how smart Weta is, because they're probably thinking, yeah, you got those old timers out there, they've got 2-3 versions of these characters, but how do we draw them in? Hey, if we add this one thing that we've never made before, ties it to that one cool moment in the movie, how do we know it's going to be limited, probably won't sell a ton, but for that collector out there that has to have everything, and you get to have this, not just a new representation of the character, but this cool add-on. And when you consider that they kind of already went there not that long ago with Saruman on throne, it's like,
Yes.
how do we, reinvent the character in a way that we're going to get people to come back and still. So it wasn't quite enough to get me there, and but like yourself and a lot of other folks, it's like, no, that's what puts me over the edge into ordering the piece, and that's what they do. So they're very smart marketing there.
If Weta was fishing, their hook got me.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I saw it at Comic-Con when I had the pleasure, the opportunity to see it at Comic-Con and everything. I was like, that's really cool, and I'm like, it's a really good idea. I'm like, is the bomb, because I asked it before I actually had got the answer to the question. If I'd been patient, but I was like, is the bomb going to be something we can purchase? And yeah, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then so yeah, that was smart, because for me, that's what was ironically, that was what got me, was this little tiny add-on, because I have like you, I have an old version. I've got a couple of versions of Saruman. I've got the bust. I don't necessarily need another Saruman, even though it's a great character and I like the character.
Yeah.
But that was a nice little hook that they caught this fish with. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. Yeah, and I guess so for me, the third would be probably, I mean, Aragorn. I got mixed feelings on it because I like I said, I have the older piece. I think it's great. The face is not quite there. Like not many of the older pieces are. You can say like, yo, for sure that I totally see the actor in there. But I thought, and even when Tyler was there, like he saw it up close, and I have him like within a foot and a half distance from the newer Ellendale, and comparing the armor and the paint and everything. Like it's like for something that's going on 20 years, it is pretty good.
Yeah.
So really the only improvement they could make to that piece would be to the likeness. And I think it kind of shows because the pose is almost 100% the same. Like on the one hand, you can say, well, in the movie, he just stands there. The thing really other than that in that scene that he does. So how can you pose it any differently? So I get that, but I don't know. It was one of those like, oh, I kind of want the new one because it looks enough better that. And plus, if you get Arwen, you feel like you kind of want to pair the two new with each other. They just go complement each other so well. But it's like no one's ever twisting your arm to buy these things, but I feel kind of sort of like, Weta, you did me dirty because I have the original and I love it so much, and now I got this other one. So what do I do? And then that plays into the whole people that feel like me and want to upgrade, and you start to see, like if you go on eBay right now and you Google that King Elisar statue, you're going to see a lot more than you would have.
Oh yeah.
A month or two ago, and there's a reason for that. And of course, the domino effect that has for collectors is that suddenly there's a glut of this statue, and you can see from week to week the price being lowered because no one's picking them up, because anyone that's serious in this business knows that the new one is coming out, so they're like, no, I'm not buying the old one. I get it. So it kind of kneecaps the second hand market in a way. So for me, it's like, makes that there's less of an incentive to pick up the new one because I know that I'm going to sell the old one at quite a loss. And you should never really be getting into collecting for uh, profit or value or anything like that. But you also don't want to just be giving them away.
Right.
And so I have mixed feelings. Let's just say, Josh.
Yeah, I will tell you, for me, and I think, and I've said this on the board before. The Elisar statue was the first statue I ever placed a purchase for on when it went up on Sideshow's website, and I started looking for Lord of the Rings statues. So that was my first ever purchase. So I have besides loving the movies, loving the books, loving the story, have a connection to that piece because that was number one. But when for me ordering this one, the reason that I didn't have quite, I think maybe the same torment on it is that I love that sequence a lot. Just the whole, evil's been defeated, a good person's in charge. We know the quality of the character, the whole about a no one sequence that follows it. There's something special with that. It's a very beautifully done statue. Actually, look, the old one holds up quite well, like you said. It really does hold up very, very well. Mm-hmm. This one's obviously a slight upgrade over the top of it. I shouldn't say slight. It's an upgrade over the top of it. But also, and I know Tyler kind of feels this way too, because he's a fan of Gondor. I love Gondor. And so it was like, yeah, I'm ordering this without hesitation because it's kind of a neat full circle moment in some ways, with that being my first purchase ever and having a chance to purchase an updated version and still having the older one. So kind of going there. But no, I get what you're saying and why why there might be hesitation in doing it and stuff. But yeah, for me, I was like,
but if you're a newer collector, it's like, hell yeah.
But you can also get the older one for much cheaper now too. So
it's true.
And then someone in your situation, it's win-win. really. Like you could pick up the old one for much lower price now than ever, or you could just go with the newer
Yeah.
version and at
What
a
were,
still reasonable price. So
what were you saying there, Josh?
You have the original?
I don't.
You don't? Okay.
No, I initially I had kind of passed on it because I just thought the likeness just wasn't there, just based on pictures I had seen. And then
Right.
when the anniversary pieces started coming out, and
Right.
it was, having to keep up with those and stuff. I was like, I'm just gonna put off most sideshow Weta pieces
Yeah.
until the anniversaries are done, and then who knows what kind of Aragorn we're gonna see. And so I held off, and I'm glad I did. And now, if I want to get the new one, I can, or if I can get the old one at a good price. So I mean, as a new collector, it's great.
Right. Well, that's another reason why it makes sense to go back and do that statue. Like Valkyrie said, I mean, there's not a lot of pose choices. I mean, I
Yep.
guess they could have gotten him. Maybe the pose might have been slightly different, in that sequence where he's standing right in front of Arwen versus
Yeah,
standing up, obviously, in front of the doors there. Um,
but they're
but
pretty limited.
you're pretty limited unless or you do him kneeling for the
Mhm.
sequence where you bow to no one, but you're not going to do you're going to do the King of Gondor
Yeah.
kneeling. You're just not unless you're doing a master collection piece and it's like super fancy.
I actually thought our chances of getting an Aragorn this year were pretty slim, just because last year we got the classic series Aragorn, and I thought, well, what are the odds that they do Aragorn back to back in two different, like one year and then the next year? And I did think, well, if we do an Aragorn, it'll probably be at the Black Gates, is what I had been thinking, because I thought, the old LSR one,
Right.
other than the face, it still looks pretty good. So
Yeah.
that's what I had thought we were gonna get this year. And um well, for my picks, my first one was Frodo, for many of the reasons that you guys have already mentioned, just the scarcity of a limited Frodo, and I just thought it was the best likeness of Frodo in a statue to date.
It's so much better. I mean, I don't know if you guys have gotten it yet.
Like, they got tears in his eyes.
It I mean, I, I know some people probably blow me off because they think I love everything or whatever. But it really, the likeness is just, I mean, I've seen Elijah Wood up close in person at Comic-Con,
Mhm.
and it looks like Elijah. I mean, it looks like
Yeah,
Elijah Wood.
yeah,
Just and being an open edition. I mean, obviously the holidays, budgets are tight, yada yada yada. I get all of that. I get all of that. But if you are a collector, and I'll say this in the review when I get a chance to sit down and do it, it's one of those I wouldn't pass it up. I wouldn't wait. If you can figure out how to swing it in your budget, it's really a nice piece. To be honest with you, um, we're lucky. I think it's nice enough that we're lucky it's not a limited edition solo statue. I mean, it's
Mhm.
really, really, really nice, and it captures a beautiful moment where
Yeah.
he's contemplating the move and leave his friends behind, go on this journey by himself. I mean, there's just
Mhm.
Valkyrie said earlier about the characters in the moment and the heart of the statue and um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
all those things that we say on the board at various times.
I those were many of the reasons why I thought it was my number one pick for the classic series this year. And at the same time, it's like, well, we complain about there not being enough hobbits, and it's like, okay, we as collectors, we got to do our part, and we got to order Frodo so that we can get the other
They
three
can see the
hobbits in the
sales are there
classic
to
series.
justify it.
Yeah,
Isn't wrong though when he said earlier, um, I mean, I'm not giving away trade secrets at all. I have been told this by people when Sideshow had the license. The Hobbits are always some of their lowest sellers for whatever reason. It's when
yeah.
Sideshow got rid of their statue line, I know for a fact that they have a prototype Merry and Pippin
Hmm.
that will never see the light of day because the sales just weren't there.
Right.
And as the line kind of dragged on and stuff, and so they didn't do it because they know hobbits struggle for
The
whatever reason. Same, so it's I
the
mean, if
the yeah. The caveat to that is, 20 years down the road now, there are certain moments in the film that people really love now, or poses, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, well, do the hobbits not sell well, or could you have given us a different pose or a better pose for that hobbit? You know, like when I think of Frodo statues, we have the one that I'd like now.
Mhm.
I'm sure you guys probably remember that promo picture of Frodo when he's holding Sting and he's kind of gazing at it for the first time.
Mhm.
In
In
Rivendell.
Rivendell. Yeah, I think that would make a great statue of Frodo. I can remember seeing that on the first paperback cover of Fellowship that I had ever read. And then
Yeah.
him holding the ring at Mount Doom, I think that would
Mm.
sell. So it's like, well, do hobbits not sell well, or maybe pick better poses and moments to depict these hobbits? Valkris has often talked about how he despises the sideshow Weta Pippin because it's just not in a pose or moment that he likes, and it's like,
He's
well, if you,
also not in Fellowship gear.
yeah,
Yeah, I know I keep hammering this nail on the head. Like I just so want to have the Fellowship, and
It's
we've
it's the
we've become so
likeness.
close.
The thing that kills that Pippin piece, and I have it, and the thing for me that kills it at all, not to hammer again, not because I know I've seen having watched Mike, I know Valkyrie kind of, I know he doesn't like it, and I get it. I trust me. I'm is the scared look. To me,
Mm.
if they had just gone with a more serious look on his face,
Yeah.
I mean, he could have still been scared, but maybe not mouth wide open, type.
yeah,
Mhm.
I think it would have been better, even
mhm,
even with a similar pose, even the kind of, even just mouth closed kind of, look to his face, not where his mouth is wide open and he looks like
yeah,
he's about to have
Mm.
life leave him.
yeah,
Um,
It was an awkward choice. I
it's
mean, personally, if I had to guess actually why the Hobbits don't sell well, I think it's because, and it's important to make a distinction here between us, like the three of us, and all the folks that we know in the forum that the hardcore collector, people that are really into this stuff, that know the movies
mhm,
and books inside out and all of that, that understand the importance of the Hobbits to the story. And but when you separate us from the more casual collectors or your so-called just fantasy fair fans, that when you think of a fantasy, you think of the powerful wizards and the big dark lord armor wearing villains, or the heroic um guys like Aragorn with the sword, or Boromir blowing his horn, or you got Legolas and Gimli with their weapons out, the elf and the dwarf, more of those fantasy stereotypes. It fits more the image that the average person on the street would have of what fantasy. I know those are tropes, but
mhm,
that's
no,
what's ingrained in the mind. Like you don't really see, like
mhm.
the hobbits, they have this innocence about them. They're not the armor wearing, sword swinging fantasy type, so they're very you know
That's fair. No,
that's
you
not
why,
what yeah, it's not what the average person would think or would want to buy or have in their collection, because they don't look very impressive, or we know they're heroic more so than many other characters, but that it comes through in a different way in the story. So
right.
yeah, they don't impress visually, I guess that's what I'm trying to
Well,
say. So
the best
people just tend to
example,
pass them. So you and I for sure will buy them. We're crying out for these hobbits, but when they
right?
make them en masse, they're not going to sell well, because people are just like, I'd prefer like a soldier in armor with a sword, or a wizard with his staff, than
right,
just a hobbit standing there. So that, to me,
Well,
that's
I
my
I
theory.
think the perfect
So
example of what you're talking about. I mean, I've seen it a lot over the years at Comic Con. I mean, obviously the last couple of years, Weta hasn't had a booth, but um, before COVID, when they had booths and stuff, you watch the normal, person who
mhm.
is looking at stuff at a booth, because one of the things I like to do there is people watch, um, watch who people are looking at and paying more. They're who the Lord of the Rings. You could tell who are Lord of the Rings collectors at the booths and who are not necessarily Lord of the Rings. And
The lucky
I,
lose.
yeah, people going by, they're going to stop and hit the monsters or the action looking characters first, and maybe they'll look at like a Hobbit or something.
mhm,
But yeah, I mean, and if
Yeah,
you're going to
there's
sell
a there's a tier.
yep, and if you're going to sell
Mhm.
stuff, you can sell an Aragorn to Bob, who just is a statue collector.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Frodo has to be sold to us or people like us that are into fantasy or into Lord of the Rings. And they have I think the Hobbits have a much more of a niche market. And yeah, I agree with you. I think, and long story short, yeah, I think that partially plays into their slow selling is they have a target audience, and the target audience is not necessarily Bob, who might stop and look at it at Comic-Con and go, that's cool, but then stares at the Balrog for 30 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's but with the new ordering system for the limited editions, the timed, I think
Right.
there's a lot less risk now for Weta to tackle the hobbits. And
Yeah.
like just off the top of my head, I can think of so many great hobbit statues. Merry and Pippin sitting on the walls of Isengard, I think would make a great diorama in 1/6, with Pippin's got his legs out and and they're feasting and smoking, or Sam versus Shelob, let him go, you filth, or I would love to see the 4 hobbits on top of Weathertop when they're all kind of back to back and the ring race start to crest and they're, I think that would make a great statue. It'd be a premium, but it would be a great hobbit statue,
The Sam versus Shelob is and I'll say this because I know Jim will order one, maybe 2. He wants that. Yeah, I would Sam versus Shelob. Of the Sam statue possibilities, that's my number 1.
Yeah. And I hope we talked about this earlier, and I've mentioned this, I don't know how many times on the flame there, but doing the dual classic series and limited edition, do them in that pose. And then for the people that just don't want a spider in their collection or the arachnophobes, well, their imagination can do the rest. They know what that scene is from. They can picture Shelob and Frodo. And then for people who don't mind that or just want the big premium, you can do part of the rocks and the stairs and Shelob and Frodo at her feet as a big premium piece, and that way everyone who wants that moment of, because that is kind of one of Sam's big moments, and that translates really well to a statue. I think they can get that, so I hope Weta does that.
Yep, I'm with you 110% on that one.
Getting back to on topic, I think my second would be Arwen. I think it's the best likeness of Arwen to date. She's, like Val was saying, underrepresented in the just collectible form. I think there's maybe 3 of her.
Yeah, counting the
3
count 4 pieces, 3 statues. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, there's a sideshow one, the sideshow Weta, and Arwen and Asphalov.
And it looks to be the best of the lot.
And I think, and it really, really captures, I think, her femininity and, just that tender moment kind of her at the coronation. I think it's just a really great representation of the character. And then, for my third one, it was tough to pick. I think the Lurtz is great. I did find the timing on it odd. It's kind of like they didn't know where to put it, and so they released it at the first half of, because I remember when it came out, it was like, Lurtz? It's the Return of the King anniversary. What is Lurtz doing here? And then personally, Saruman for me, I feel a little Saruman out, like through my own silly fault. I have the Gentle Giant bust, I have the Sideshow Weta bust, I have the Weta mini, I have the Sideshow Weta Saruman with the Palantir. So I feel like I have a lot of Saruman already. And then that dang stupid bomb made me order it. And it's like,
it blew up in your face.
Yeah, and so otherwise I wouldn't have pre-ordered them. And so, I mean, I kind of hope Weta does more of that stuff, because that's the only reason I pre-ordered Saruman. Otherwise, I would have just hunted them down on a sale in the future. But I had to have that bomb, because I could display that with my Uruk or with Helm's Deep or with, you name it. Like and there's only 250 of them. So yeah, it's going to be impossible to find. You're going to see guys asking like $600 on eBay for it in a couple of years.
Yeah, the bomb is going to go for more than this. I mean, you could profit selling the bomb and keeping Saruman.
Yeah, it would pay for Saruman easily. So I was like, I gotta have that. So I pre-ordered it. But I feel a little Saruman now, even though I think it's a great looking statue. Like they're all great. And the likeness to, and they did the perfect pose for him, I thought. All the Sarumans we see, he's got the Palantir, right? And it's like, well, if they do a classic series Saruman, get rid of the Palantir, because then he can be from the Hobbit, you know. Hobbit collectors can pick him up too. And whether, depending on how it's in your display, he could be a good guy still, or he could be a villain. And so I thought that really gives Weta more options to sell, because now Hobbit collectors, Bishop, you can pick up Saruman, and so I really do think, but I think I'm gonna go with a lesser just for my last, just because I love Aragorn, I love Gondor, and I don't have an Aragorn in my collection, funny enough.
What?
I know, I've just been waiting for like the
I
Aragorn.
you say that before, and I'm like, even now, just now you're saying that, I think I do this every time I hear you say that, or I see it come up on the board. I'm starting going, shit, pardon, I shouldn't cuss. I'm sorry, guys. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how many do I have in my collection? I've got, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
"Dude, that's ridiculous."
Start eating your toes, you have a problem.
I
To
have,
count.
I have the legendary scale bust of him holding.
I don't have that. I don't have that.
And it is a good likeness of, but it should be at that size.
Yeah.
And
Never got into
that's-
that one, so that was one I didn't get into.
and that was just, that fell in my lap. I found it for $60
Oh.
locally. So I'm like, well, I'll buy it. And then I bought it home, and I'm like, actually, I kind of like this piece, but I don't have Aragorn in my collection. And so that is why, and most of the Fellowship characters I actually don't have in my collection, because I've been waiting for these new guys to come out.
Right.
And so that's what would be my third.
I think you'll see another, and this isn't inside information or anything. I do think you'll see another Boromir.
Yeah, I hope so.
In the next year or two.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, the last one obviously went with the Lurtz. It was meant to go with that Lurtz at Ammo Hen. It's him being shot. The only really kind of, the Sideshow Weta one is kind of, he's heroically fixing what he messed up, but really the only heroic version where he's not been teased, by the ring and everything, is that the Sideshow one where he's in the the Gondorian armor, which is an amazing piece. So I think
possible to find now.
Yeah, it's the one. It is the one piece from that line that I actually did not sell when I was clearing that part of my collection, because it's so beautifully done, I think. But I just, my gut says that we'll see in the next year or two, see another Boromir that is kind of before he's been tricked by the ring to be kind of go through that little evil spell real quick, where he's alive, he's not full of arrows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think they went with the Lurtz too. I mean, Lurtz kind of came in a weird spot, but all the because of how COVID screwed up all of their, fat manufacturing stuff, everything is just so weirdly delayed. I think he probably would have come out earlier, but the thing about the piece, and the reason I did order it originally before I wanted to cancel it, and then I kept it because it happened, like I said, is it is the pose that I wanted originally. When I thought we would get a Lurtz statue, and kind of that walking sequence,
just as he's cresting the hill, and the music is
Yeah.
that you can hear that choir, and
exactly.
Boromir's fighting heroically, and you can see that bastard coming up the hill, and sorry, I always love Boromir, so it always bugs me that he died, but if they do go with a Boromir, I really hope it's him sounding his horn. As a kid, I remember seeing that picture of
that is a classic series. Just do it as a classic series. You don't have to make it an LE. That's not an LE. That's not a piece that needs to be an LE. I mean, if somebody from Weta watches this, that to me would be my suggestion on them. When you do Boromir, he needs to be blowing the horn.
Yeah.
Make it a classic series. We'll order it.
Yeah. And that pairs with the old Lurtz too. You could have him doing that, and it still works. I know
it still works.
Film,
First arrow.
So that still works. So it works with the classic series Lurtz, and it works with the limited edition Lurtz. Right. And so I think that is the best pose to put Boromir in. I know Thilden had mentioned too, an alternative, and this seems to be more like a limited edition. Was him holding the ring on the mountain pass, and
Yeah.
when he's kind of staring at it and he's kind of being tempted, because it really does. So as much like the Asilidor statue, it really summarizes kind of the character in one piece. This inner struggle with the ring, but I prefer the horn just because I love that heroic stand with him with the
Yeah.
horn.
But I
And
mean,
but he's not
if I
dying.
had to guess, and because Weta just has, they have this tricky way of always subverting our wants and expectations, is that I've kind of learned, like, whatever it is that you think they're gonna do, and that's what you wish the most for, they will find a way to do the opposite. So I think
Not
I
with
definitely
Saruman.
would
Not with
prefer.
Saruman.
I would prefer the blowing the horn version. I think that would be pretty epic. And kind of give that character, you know, that it's that last scene in the movie that redeems him in our eyes. Where he turns it around and shows his valor. But all of that stuff aside, that in keeping in line with the quiet, calm, serene moments that they've chosen for the classic series, because that was, that's the intent of that particular line. It's far more likely actually that they will pick something like the moment where he almost, touches the ring, and he's having that moment of reflection, because it's just so much. It's quieter. There's no action. Uh, Perfectly captures the character as he's being torn apart between doing what's right and his desire for the ring to bring it back to Gondor. So yeah, I can't really think if there would even be a third choice on their list of like, hey, we got to do a classic Boromir. Like, what do we pick other than just,
Moria.
a perfectly
what-
static pose, like where he's just standing there, hopefully like sword and maybe the moment where actually, yeah, I just thought of one when the cave troll, when they're all ready for the cave troll to enter the chamber, and he's standing there, sword and shield, just kind of ready. So
Yeah.
it's kind of an action pose, but still very,
Iron
classic
Iron Studios did that.
stance.
Yeah, Iron
Studios
Studios
did that.
just did
The
that one.
Iron Studios one, yeah. And let's face it, the companies can copy each other. It's no, they have the license, they can do whatever they want with the
And I would
character.
say that's probably if you're the poses you're talking about, I want and I would buy them in this order. I want Horn of Gondor 1, your idea, the Iron Studios version 2,
Mhm.
and then the being tempted by the ring 3, and the ring being tempted by the ring is 3 for the same for what I said earlier, and that I feel like Boromir kind of, because of how his story goes in that first film,
Mhm.
doesn't he needs a good guy, alive hero statue
Yeah,
versus let's show him in his weakest moment. I mean,
right.
it's type where he's, I mean, obviously that's not his weakest moment, but
Well, the worst one would be him throwing the bundle of wood down and going after Frodo.
with the leaves in his hair and stuff.
Yeah, his hair is all full of leaves, and a madness took me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the horn gives you more display options, and would potentially entice older collectors who have the limited edition alerts to pull the trigger on that version of Boromir. Plus, it's an heroic.
The display, like you said, the display options.
Yeah,
Which
and I think where was I going with this? I lost it.
trust me.
Yeah, the horn. The horn is kind of Boromir's most iconic piece of kit, I think. Like, if you were to put a silhouette maybe of all the characters, like with Boromir and his horn, I feel like he's best known for his horn. It's mentioned quite a bit. It gets more use even in the books than it does the film, and so I think it would be great to have that iconic piece of his kit showcased in such a way in that statue too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
that's what I love about the classic series line. It's just like the things that they can do with it.
Mhm.
And that most of those statues are kind of, you know, simple in pose and quiet moments and stuff, and it lends you to being able to do him holding the horn, you know, and using it, either holding it or blowing it. They might not go with the quite blowing because the legendary scale bust, I think he's blowing the horn. So maybe he's not
Yeah.
blowing the horn in the statue, but there's a way to do it, and it just lends you to being able to do pieces like that again as an open edition that will sell. So
Yeah.
make that one and we'll buy it. There, you got at least 3 sales right here. So there you go.
Yeah. So what ahead? I think just 2 limited editions releases this year in the 1/6 line. They had Gilgalad
Mhm.
and the Fountain Guard with the white tree. Let's start with Gilgalad. What did you guys think for? I know he was long awaited, 20 years await. You know, what did you guys think? I think they really nailed it. I didn't love the price, but uh he's a great statue and worth the 20 years wait. You know, did he disappoint in any way?
Not
Ish.
for me. I mean, I think the armor looks amazing. Um, you know, the shield looks really cool. I mean, I know there's some debate on size of the shield. If I remember right, I think that was a
Yeah.
debate. At one point was the size of the shield. I think the shield looked fine to me. Um, the likeness is pretty darn good, I thought. Um, it just looked really cool. I think it was worth the 20-year wait. Uh, price, I don't know. I mean, you guys have heard me talk about price before. Price is what price is.
Mhm.
Um, uh, I think it's one of the, you know, so it was to me, it was a one of those. It's one I had been waiting 20 years for, and so because of that, maybe I ignored the price more than I might have other times. Uh, but it was just really, it was a really pretty piece, and so I'm looking forward to having it. And um, I don't know that my collection, the way I need to set, I'm working on setting things up and working on. He's gonna be with Elendil and Sauron, because to be honest with you, I'm probably gonna put Elendil with my Gondor setup,
Mm.
in what I want to do with it. So I'm probably not gonna be able to recreate that moment per se, but and because I'm not buying another Elendil because he's super expensive on the secondary market. I'm crazy. I'm not that crazy. Uh, but I think it's really cool. I think it was fine. As far as price point to the weight was fine. Could have been cheaper, sure. Could have been more expensive. So I just was glad to finally get something that was really nice looking. That obviously Weta, you know, kind of I think kicked some ass on.
Mhm.
And yeah, I thought it was really cool. So I was glad to finally get him.
Yeah. Well, I've made my thoughts known on the piece in another episode, but just to kind of repeat myself here, I think, yeah, he was well worth the wait. One of my lore favorite characters, despite there being very little actually written about the guy. It's just one of those that kind of captured my imagination. He's the last of this line, the last person in Middle Earth to hold that title of the High King of the Noldor, this race that isn't, you know, other than Galadriel, they're just their glory days are long gone. And so it was just always that tragic moment in the book where you see that last great sign of a great house extinguished, and um, bemoan the fact to this day that PJ cut those scenes from the movie. That if ever he goes back and we get this unicorn edition of the movie's super duper extended versions, that somehow would be, I know that's a pipe dream. Anyways, my position on that is well known. Back to the statue, I think it's great, and was well worth the wait. It was a no-brainer for me having Elendil and Sauron already. I do intend to display them together. Fortunately, I have just enough room, I think. There depends on the actual size of the base, but we'll see. Um, I do have one small, I guess, nitpick, disappointment, whatever you call it, is the pose. I don't, if like something that you intend to do, Josh, it's and like display them separately. Like
Mhm.
like to me, he looks like a classic series piece.
Okay,
Being
yeah, yeah,
honest, like a very expensive one, but like
right,
the pose
right.
is classic in every sense of the word, and it's
There's
gorgeous.
not
The
a lot of
armor, the spear, the shield, everything is there. Everything that we wanted. the regal look. But then the thing is, the Weta's intention was, and I know they're trying to be versatile because yeah, you can, if you don't have Elendil or Sauron, or you don't intend to do the diorama, you want a piece that can stand on its own and not be tied so much to that scene that it looks awkward by himself. But on the other hand, for those of us that do want to pose it, I feel he looks too, he's not battle ready in a sense. He feels too relaxed. So when they said that, here's Sauron, here's Elendil, and guess who's coming next? And so that's the danger, is that you start forming these images in your mind of how you want that representation of the character to be. And there's always that trepidation before the reveal, because they're not going to match it perfectly. But it was a bit too much of a departure for me, because I pictured that maybe the shield would be up a little more and the spear would be lowered somewhat, and that he's ready to face Sauron, rather than, he feels like he's more like casually walking up, and there's not that sense of danger and tension for that scene. You look at Elendil and he's ready. He's got his sword. He has that look of fear where he's kind of making his peace, that he knows he may not survive and he doesn't, and all that. And I don't think that translates as much to the Gilgalad piece. He looks a bit too
His
serene.
his face looks
Maybe it's
pretty
because he's an
stoic,
elf
but
and he has this different, well, if I die here, that's just a quick ticket back to Valinor. I get to come back, so it doesn't matter.
yeah.
He's not too fussed about death. He's an elf. So I don't know. But I love it. Like, let's just put that to rest here. I love the piece. I'm so glad they did it. It was instant pre-order for me. Um, if I could just turn back the clock and whisper in someone's ear at Weta, I would just say, can you make him just a little bit more ready to face Sauron than he appears to be? And that's the only little thing I'd say on that. So
Now that you say that, with as far as like he's kind of like a super classic series. Actually, now that I thinking about this pose and the statue itself and everything, yeah, it is kind of definitely in that vein of statue, as far as more calm and relaxed versus if you just compare it to Elendil, which I mean, kind of, I mean, still is classic, almost classic series-esque.
It is.
There is, but there's more action. There's more action to what's getting ready to happen versus
Yeah.
I mean, Gilgalad is really it's a beautiful piece.
Yes.
I that's what when that whole debate kind of, I mean, like I said, price aside, I mean, would I have liked it to be cheaper? I think I'm on record. I think of saying I would. I mean, I will always love these things to be cheaper, just for no other purposes than I could fit one in my budget. But but kicking that to the side, because like I said, price is what price is. It's just a really beautiful piece. And so when some of the debate was about, oh, the shield is maybe a little bit too big or a little bit too small, I'm like, I don't care. It's great looking. Nobody in the world. I mean, I get it. I do understand that for anybody watching that sees this on the board and is tired of me kind of being the crotchety, grumpy old guy when we get into the debates of window sizes and stuff and everything. If the shield's a little bit too small, I don't care. I don't care at all. Zero, like negative F's to give, because on my shelf it's going to look great. When people see it, they're not going to. 99% of the people that will see my collection aren't going to ever know that the shield was maybe a little bit bigger on the prop or whatever.
Who's going to pull out the measuring tape?
Would it be perfect if it was? Sure, I get it. And there's people out there that need that accuracy. Cool, you do you. But for me personally, it's going to look beautiful on my shelf. It's going to kick ass in my collection, and I don't care. Not even a little.
Elf on the shelf.
And,
he's going to be an elf. There you go.
Elf on the shelf.
Next Christmas, my parents are going to be doing up here, elf on a shelf.
And in terms of like scale and stuff, I think I always give Weta the benefit of the doubt on whether a certain sword, staff, shield, you name it, is to scale. It's like, well, you can just go measure the actual prop.
Well,
and so
not only to that, it's just in our conversations with Kit Ray and over at UC Forums, he owns and has had props for just about everything that was in that movie passed through his hands, especially weapons and armor. And he has said numerous times how many different versions there are of every single thing that we see. Some of them even used in different shots, and so there are discrepancies, not just in the look or the particular detail, but maybe even the size. So it's very possible that, if Kit Ray says that, that shield looks a bit small, but on the same breath, he can acknowledge, and I don't want to speak for him, but just bringing up examples of conversations like this that we've had in the past where, uh, like most recently, we've been talking about the Sword of Isildur, which they're trying to bring back in the United Cutlery line. And there's been different prop photos brought up where some of the details are just completely missing from the hilt. So it's like, well, which is which? There's no true version, really. You could say, well, the one that we see on the screen is the one.
Yeah, for
But
2 seconds.
yeah, it's
Daniel,
so it's like you said, yeah, you can't fuss too much about that sort of stuff. You just go crazy.
Daniel has said the same stuff when he's been on with us on the podcast. He said similar stuff on the board. I really wish the episode with Leonard, when I got a chance to sit down with him, wasn't just absolute dog crap for audio, because it messes up the conversation. Because we talk about, I kind of used the Helm's Deep because at the time that was going on, we had a couple people on that were just really going crazy about like this angle of the windows and stuff like that. And he gave a really good answer. If people want to go back and find it and try to deal with the audio, I'll apologize for anybody that does, but I was having internet problems apparently, and it was screwing up the recording. But he explained, when you're shrinking stuff down, some of that's got to happen, and like like what you're talking about, there's different reference shots, and you're going to the bigature, and you're trying to. It's just that's why I'm like I said, that's why with the shield, yeah, maybe it needs to be a little bit bigger. Okay, but does it at the current size? I mean, if the shield was this big and the statue is 6 scale, okay, that's ridiculous. Please fix it. But the statue might supposed to be this big, but it's kind of just a tiny bit, and no one cares. It looks beautiful. I mean, but some people, that's their thing, and I get it. I try to be less grumpy old man about it, because it's one of those. Valkyris, I think, gets me.
Title. That's my title, man.
I think Valkyris gets that, at least from that angle for me, because he's been collecting for a while. I've been collecting since 2000. This literally is the 20th year for me. I just don't. It's not that I don't care, but I want.
You're more concerned with the artistic representation of the character.
The essence of the character. Is it there? It's the heart of the character.
Just be grateful that they made him at all, because that didn't.
Yeah, I mean, because Gilgalad's
a couple years ago, they just didn't seem like.
No, Gilgalad's got 30 seconds of screen time in the film, basically, maybe 30 seconds.
Maybe.
And
yeah.
I
don't even know if
he finally decided to make him. Okay, the shield could be a little bit bigger. I don't care. It's kind of like with Helm's Deep, which, by the way, I still
losing sleep over it, man.
A great example too of stuff changing is like Sauron's armor changes in every scene he's in.
Right.
Even the prologue, like every scene he's in, it changes. And the Witch King, you can tell, like maybe in digital, because like the jaws on his mask, they open and they close.
Yes, there's
like that stuff changes, and we have noticed that because we've watched it 200 times over the last 20 years.
Even the Sauron statue, and that's another one of those that I need to sit down and not necessarily review, but I guess when it's behind, it's not really a review anymore per se, but sit down and kind of talk about. One of the things I know I'm going to mention in there, obviously, is the shoulder pauldrons they needed to be flipped. But the thing for me that cracks me up about it more than anything, like you're talking about, one, the armor being different, is that when it went up for order,
nobody noticed.
There was not a soul that said anything. There wasn't a soul that said anything for a month afterwards or 6 months after. It wasn't literally until it was literally like getting ready to ship, someone goes, "Oh, I think that might be different." Well, yeah. I mean, like, no, I mean, we're hardcore people and we missed it. I mean, would it be nice if it was, and they said, "Hey, listen, we screwed up on that." Cool. They admitted Daniel said, "Hey, we messed up on it." Again, it's one of those things. If I show people on my shelf, and say, this is Sauron, he is this, this, and this in Lord of the Rings. Yes, it's a
Yeah,
mistake.
average person's
Yes,
not gonna know.
yes. Is it something that needs to be mentioned in a review that, hey, listen, if you need to know this is there, as someone who would be reviewing it, that would be my duty to say, hey, listen, this was a small mistake. They admitted it. Yada yada yada.
Right.
Most people aren't going to care. I could take that thing to Comic-Con, put it on a booth, and say, do you think that statue's cool? And I might get 5 people out of 100 that go, his shoulder pauldrons need to be flipped. Maybe 5.
I think less than
Yeah.
that.
So
You had what, 1,000 people order it and nobody noticed?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
it's such a tricky thing, and it's all about how much you let it bother you personally, because
Yeah.
like when
And which version of the
like
script
like
is the one you're going on?
I never caught it when it was
Yeah.
previewed. I did that somebody brought it up, and then I was like, yeah, no, that is kind of silly. I mean, how they have the reference material, they have the thing standing there in their warehouse or whatever, and like how does that get past them? So there is a point where you just go like, they shouldn't be making mistakes like this, but then they're only human, and little things will creep up in there. If you go back to all the other statues previously, you're going to find little things here and there, like, oh, the original Gandalf staff, that stuff doesn't actually exist, or maybe Frodo is wearing a cloak in one scene and he
Or
shouldn't
the
have in
original
that statue.
Gandalf
Whatever. There's little things here and there, and like I bought the statue regardless, even though I was one to say that how could they do something like that? How can they like not catch into that one pretty big detail? But you know, I put the thing together, I put it on my shelf, and not one time in the months since, and going down there, shooting the video with Tyler, all the dozens of people that have come through the room personally, and I've shown the collection, never once has it crossed my mind, or have I remembered actually that, hey, those pauldrons are actually backwards.
Mhm.
So what does that tell me? Non-issue.
Yeah.
Should they be the other way around? Well, of course, they are backwards. But, it bothers me more if there's a flaw or a little break or something I've had to fix on a statue. I'm one of those people that in the back of my mind is always there. When I look at that statue, I can't, even though the average person won't know or won't comment or see, OCD enough that I'll always be, that statue bugs me because I know there's a little flaw with it because there was a break or something, a little touch of paint that I had to put in. Those things bother me. Knowing that the pauldrons on Sauron's armor are backwards. Other than this conversation now, I have not thought about it in the entire months that thing's been up in my shelf.
breaks bother me way more than stuff like that. I've got the original Aragorn at the Black Gates, and we were doing some remodeling in the house, and something clipped its arm, and the inside pauldron with his arm, it has a piece missing out of it that I cannot find anywhere in the basement where my staff is. Just something fell randomly when they were doing some work. Up in a different spot in the house, it caused something to just awkwardly fall or whatever. That kind of crap bothers me way more.
I bet every time you look at that piece, you think about that little. Yeah, exactly. That's me. Yeah, that's me.
I'm much more into, did it come? Do I have to fix it? The eyes on my Legolas from my Legolas and Gimli at Amon Hen, they're a little they're okay from most angles, but it's enough that I kind of wanted to get it replaced and almost did, because they're off just maybe a little bit. That photos, I think it would have looked funny and it would have been more trouble than it's worth as far as like having to answer questions. That kind of stuff bothers me more, or breaks. Those kind of little things bother me more than the pauldrons for whatever reason. I guess I'm just weird that way. But another thing about the Gandalf statue, the original Sideshow Weta one that you were talking about with the staff, the fingernails on when it was originally put out, the fingernail colors were like purple or something. There was some yeah, the fingernail colors were different than what it ended up being. So there's just weird little things that, with these pieces that the Dwalin bust from Gentle Giant. the freaking face is smashed in and stuff. I mean, it's just there's you collect long enough, you're going to see things. And I
Right.
think you learn to kind of prioritize, like I said, breaks being more of an issue. I'd rather something, if the pauldrons are backwards and it's completely intact and no one can ever tell and it looks beautiful and it looks like Sauron on screen, thumbs up. Sauron shows up with a bunch of breaks and I got to send him back and I'm heartbroken, so to speak, because now I got to deal with a broken statue. Or the
Mhm.
few times I've had to smash something so I can get a replacement. Yeah. That stuff bothers me way more. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sidetrack again. I'm like,
Yeah,
squirrel.
back to the topic of what did you guys think of the fountain guard with the white tree? To me, this was the showstopper of the year. It was unexpected. I remember maybe just kind of suggesting the idea of a white tree environment to Daniel on the forum, not knowing that this had already been built like years ago, and just kind of thinking like, oh man, that would be great if they did that, and I can remember just being so hyped in that video where, Leonard and Richard kind of showed it off at the Comic Expo. And
Yeah.
to me, this was probably the most excited I've been for a piece this year. I think had Theoden Snowman come out, that maybe would have topped it. But to me, this was the piece for this year. I think if you're a book fan, or if you're a Lord of the Rings collector, this is a piece you got to have. Um, that was my thoughts on it, and I think they nailed it. It looks great.
Yeah.
It's everything I hoped for in that. Maybe I would have liked a bit more of the fountain, but for what it is, the size, I wouldn't have. I don't think it's not a true 1/6 scale.
No, the tree's definitely not.
But at
Yeah,
that
it's
size, to have the full fountain would have been a huge footprint. And
oh yeah.
I remember kind of talking with Rick or Ithilden on the flame there, how well, if they did Thranduil on throne with that guard, they could do a white tree with the guard. They could do it, and lo and behold, they did it. So what did you guys think of it? Was there anything you kind of wish they would have done differently, or was it just a home run all around?
Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go? You want me to go again?
Let's keep it the way we've been doing. Josh
Okay.
first.
Obviously, I mean, I think I kind of teased it a little bit during that week, kind of like while Comic Con was
You said
going
it was
on.
an environment, but not really an environment.
Yeah, I can't
I
remember.
did
I
guess it.
remember
I did guess it though.
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
games with us, man. Playing games with
Um,
us.
so I didn't get a chance to see the at Comic Con when they showed it during the panel, because obviously there was no Hollywood this year at Comic Con between the writer strike and the actor strike. So getting into that room, I went to get into that room an hour beforehand, and I would have probably needed to show up to get into that room, a room that you wouldn't normally have to get that this far. I probably 2 or 3 hours in advance of their panel to get in. So I didn't get in to see it there. I mean, but I already had the privilege of knowing that it was coming. So it wasn't like I was missing out. But yeah, it to me personally, and this is having seen the master collection piece, the Eagle Cat, with Gandalf and with Frodo and Sam, the rescue at Mount Doom. It to me was the piece that blew me away the most coming out of Comic Con, and hopefully that says something, because if obviously the three of us have seen the Master Collection piece, and if people go track down and see the piece, see the picture, that to me should hopefully says something about how great this piece is, because it really is a very Middle Earthy feel. Lord of the Rings, obviously being Middle Earth, but it's a Middle Earthy feel piece. It's perfect Gondor. It's just everything about it fits. I've been like, obviously with Tyler, being a fan of Gondor and everything. It's one of those pieces I've wanted, because of how much I like the White City that happens to be behind Tyler currently. It's just It's beautiful. It's just really, really beautiful. And I would have probably ordered the classic series, but like we were talking about earlier with Saruman, when you have this just amazing option, it's like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm getting this for sure. And hopefully getting him means we're going to get other Gondorian soldiers. Hopefully we're going to get the Numenorian soldier. Because that bus, the Numenorian bus from the Sideshow Weta line, sure needs a 1/6 counterpart, guys. Need that. But it just was beautiful. It is really, it's one of those, I think you could put it on a list of pieces. Like if you had a small Lord of the Rings statue collection, I think it's one of those pieces that has to make the list of maybe 10 or 15 pieces you have to have in your collection. I think it's that quality of piece to me.
Yeah,
no, I was blown away by it. To me that was, like you said, in the moment where you're shown the masterpiece collection and the guard with the tree, like I felt, I felt bad for the masterpiece collection. I cannot almost question Weta's strategy in revealing the two pieces at once, because I think a lot of people will agree that they kind of stole the thunder. As amazing and spectacular as the masterpiece collection is, because it is the masterpiece collection, and so there was this expectancy that it was going to blow us away on some level, because that's what that line is meant and designed to do.
Mhm.
But then to have something that, hey, we got this other guy here, he's not in the masterpiece collection, but look how cool. And it was like, whoa.
Mhm.
And it just made me forget the eagle almost
I,
immediately, because that's the piece that I always never knew I wanted, but I don't know what.
yeah,
that you
no,
saw it.
Kind of losing myself in the moment here, just re-experiencing the emotion when I saw that. It's like you always knew that you wanted that piece, but it was like they'll never make it. And I mean, Gondor has been so largely ignored by Weta up until now. Like we're finally starting to see a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel and resurgence. That maybe this one can really open the door for more pieces, like you said. Um, Denethor.
Hey, I
Yeah, I
think
know, I know.
I think part of it
But
is you're expecting the master collection piece to be fantastic, really grand. You're kind of expecting that, and then
exactly,
we
the
weren't
two,
expecting the
yeah,
tree, and
it
so
was
that's
basically like
why.
getting two masterpiece collections in one
well, and that's what I was getting ready to say.
for one
That
deal.
is
Yeah,
I think why one of the reasons why it was to me, it is like a master collection piece, but it doesn't have the master collection price.
Yeah, I could buy
You know,
3 of them for the price of the master
yeah.
collection.
And I was talking with Jerry and his wife at their booth, because obviously that's where the master collection piece was at Comic-Con,
Mhm.
and we were speculating on price and everything, and you know, talking about talking about the Fountain Garden and White Tree, and just, I can't afford master collection piece. That's why I canceled Tree Beer. That's why I've never ordered any of the rest of them. For that price, I have to not get. I could have gotten the Eagle, sure, but I'm skipping out on the Fountain Garden White Tree. I'm skipping out on Aragorn and Arwen. I'm canceling Frodo.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not do. I'm it's beautiful. I want it, and if Weta or somebody wants to send it to me to review, I'll give you my address if you want. I'll take it. I'm not saying no. But if my option is pay $3,000 for the master collection piece, or pay less for a piece that to me is as good, and that's not to knock. I don't want anybody to watch this and think I'm knocking the master collection piece, because we're going to talk about it and I'm going to gush on it then. But the Fountain Garden White Tree is a master collection level piece to me. That's how good I think it is personally, intrinsically for myself.
Mhm.
It's
yeah,
worth the monetary cost with the cost of how I feel about it. It's like I'm stealing. I mean, that's how nice of a piece I think it is.
And
So
Yeah.
as you know, like it has the white tree too, like it just has such a significance in the lore of Middle Earth and the cultural identity of Gondor. You know, it's as significant to Gondor as, say, the Statue of Liberty is to New York, you know,
Mhm.
and so it's a big, it's an important relic, piece, object in Middle Earth,
Mhm.
and so for that alone, I think that's partly why I was so excited for it. And you mentioned too cost, right? Like I can, you know, the master collection is out of a responsible budget for me. Sure, you could get it, but then I had to skip this, and this.
Right.
And so for me, it was almost a non-starter. Like I enjoy the spectacle of the seeing the master collection, and and I was actually a little disappointed in, like, well, you were there, Josh, so you didn't get to experience it, but there was really no live stream, or there was nothing on Weta's part to reveal the master class. And so that was a little disappointing, as from the last 2 years, maybe we just got spoiled with that. There was
Yeah.
no unveiling of the master that was available to
Were
those of
they
us
were they
who weren't
live at
attending.
Facebook when they did any of that? I don't. I mean, obviously
No, I
there were
don't
people,
think so.
there was some recording going on. I know Matt from Nerd of the Rings was doing some stuff, but I don't know if it was live or not. Um,
I don't think there were other. I think Panu was there, and he took some of the first pictures, and I think I saw some stuff on Facebook. But there was, I was sitting there refreshing the Weta, like
that
Instagram, checking the different
well,
Instagram stuff,
have I
and
I mentioned it on the board, I think, but I don't know if have I told you guys like how in some ways how that all went down. That was
I
a
heard it
crazy.
was very last minute. They were still like painting the
It
feathers
they were
before
yeah,
they
they
pulled it out.
literally finished it up painting and stuff in San Diego at Comic Con,
Hmm.
and they were going to display it and show it at their panel. That was the original idea, from what I've been told.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's what because I'd heard that was the plan Wednesday night, was they were going to show it on the panel, which is another reason I wanted to go to the panel. I'm like, I want to see this freaking thing. But I told the person that I was talking to, I'm like, I think that's a bad idea though. And I don't think they went with my idea for anybody watching this. I don't think they said, "Oh, Josh said we should do something different." Um, but I was like, you guys need to put that at his booth because that's where it was going. Because they had it all set up. There was they had it blocked off on his booth
Mm-hmm.
uh
The big
to begin
black
this,
curtain.
where it's like where the case was going to be and stuff like that. So you knew something big was going there. Um,
Mhm.
and it was like you guys need to set it up there, not have it on display at the panel, have to take it apart and then traipse it through Comic Con, which, I mean, for people watching this that have been to Comic Con, they'll know what I'm talking about. But it would be like taking something very fragile, which this would be, and it's basically a one of a kind piece, because the other prototype that or masterpiece that they were making back at the workshop hadn't been finished yet, from what I understand, and bugging it through the busiest Christmas season shopping mall you've ever seen in your
Mm-hmm.
life. People that just do not care, and it would get broke. So it got changed to, it got set up at Jerry's booth completely, and they unveiled it the way that they did.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I mean, it not being like it was before COVID, where they had everything set up at their own booth and could do the live stream. It just it wasn't in a situation where um that they couldn't do the live stream the way that they wanted, because they had a skeleton crew. I think they had
Yeah, I
made
think that was part of it.
I think they had like 6 people or 7 people. Um, at least the
Two of
Weta
them
people.
was Richard and Daniel. They're not going to be
Richard
recording.
Daniel, Jules was there. Richard Daniel, Jules.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
there was only about a half a dozen of them there. I mean, and
Yeah.
I fortunately
3 of them got to be in front of the camera.
right. Yeah. So it just wasn't a situation where they could record it. I mean, it's one of the things I was trying to catch up. It's hard to keep an eye on the board and say that kind of stuff while the Comic Con's going on, because I'm trying to watch what's going on, trying to film myself for what we're doing at Torn. And but yeah, it was totally just logistically didn't work to be able to do a live stream. Now that being said, watching them unveil this monster was something else. But I'll get more when we get to that piece. But yeah, it was crazy.
So this year, Weta, I think they only released 3 environments. And I said they had the Black Gates, the Mini Baradur, and the Return of Minas Tirith, which I almost forgot about until about 20 minutes ago. What did you guys think of? We'll start with the Black Gates and Baradur. What did you guys think of the Black Gates? I know we've kind of talked about it before. So I thought I liked it. I thought maybe it could have been a little bit bigger, but I think we've been kind of spoiled for size with these big anniversary pieces, the Argonath, Big End, Helm's Deep. So I was just expecting it to be massive. And obviously it's not tiny. It's not like Prancing Pony tiny, but it does feel more in line with the traditional size of Weta environments. And I think it would have no problem sitting amongst the old Sideshow Weta environments, as well as some of the new ones. I did think it was great. I thought it's great that it was open edition too. So many of the environments are limited edition. And so it was nice that this was an open edition, and I thought they nailed it. There's not a whole lot to the Black Gates, but I thought I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I think with the Mini Baradur, I mean, I'm not going to order it because I've got the original, so I'm cool with. Unlike with like the mini statues that we talked about earlier, I'm probably going to pass on it. But I'm glad that they did it. The pictures look great. You can't track down the original, which is both tall vertically, and that base eats up freaking real estate like crazy. I think it's great. Again, for the same reasons I think the mini statues are great. It's not massive. It's affordable. It doesn't take up a bunch of space. That's great. There are always pluses in my book, and I would be hard pressed to really be negative about most of any of the mini stuff simply because of just the budget affordability of a lot of it.
Oh yeah,
the Black Gates I think is great. I've got it on order. I'm keeping my order. I'm not canceling it. I'm not, or any of that kind of thing. I ordered it without hesitation when it went up during Comic-Con. I'm like walking down the aisles, ordering it as I'm walking through people on my phone. It doesn't. I mean, yeah. I guess I'm like you a little bit. I kind of expected it to maybe be bigger, just because I think we've gotten trained for that. But at the same time, I'm glad that it wasn't, because it doesn't need to be. I think it's definitely the size of like the original Argonath, the original Helm's Deep, that size, which fits great most spaces. It's just an 8. It doesn't need to be huge. So, I mean, it's not like to segue into Minas Tirith, which I have it when it came out the first time. It doesn't need to be bigger to show a crazy amount of details. I obviously am not ordering Minas Tirith the second time, but I'm glad that they reopened it, because there were a bunch of people that missed it the first time around. Newer collectors like yourself that missed it the first time, didn't order it because it was expensive, or it was considered expensive at the time when it went up for order. So I think that's great. It's an open edition, so I don't care. I mean, I just don't care about open edition sizes and how long they run for. It is what it is. But I think it's great because it's a beautiful piece. To me, I still think it's Weta's best environment. I will die on that hill. So to speak. I think it's their best one. I've thought that since when I saw it at Comic-Con when it first came out, and I told the folks at Weta at the booth how much I loved it, and that if it disappeared from the show, don't come to Missouri because it's not there. But it's great. It's a beautiful piece. So I'm glad people were able to order it for whatever reason they passed up on it on. So yeah, I think it's great. I don't know. I think you know, the way the environments. I think it's great to have Helm's Deep redone and be as big as it is. Like I said earlier, I need to open mine. Uh, you know, coming into the holidays, it's just a bad time to have that stuff arrive because then like I need to open this, but I'm glad that it's available because it's nice to have a nicer, bigger version of Helm's Deep. I'm glad Minas Tirith is big, but like I said, I'm glad pieces like the Black Gates are the size that they are and that they're OEs because it means they can be a little bit more affordable because you can stretch out that production cost over the course of a longer run instead of having a bigger version of Barad-dûr that's $400. You can make him $299 or you know, and hey, money saved is money saved. I'll take it where I can get it when it comes to you know expenditures outside of paying for whatever you know, the norm things that I got to pay for. So
Yeah.
For me, I mean, yeah, I'm skipping the mini Barad-dûr again for the same reasons you mentioned. I have the original one. It's a beast, and I love it. Don't need the miniature one. I have the Danbury mint version. Actually, have it for sale at the moment. So yeah, it's really just only need the one dark tower, and I think that big one is about as perfect a representation. And but again, yeah, it's Weta is doing the right thing by bringing back some of these pieces, not in the way that's gonna upset the collector base by reproducing something that shouldn't be reproduced exactly because it's a limited piece. So I love that they respect that. So to bring a smaller version that's affordable and doesn't take up as much space for people that were never had the opportunity for the older ones is great. It's a pass for me. Same with the Orthanc for the same reasons. For the Blackgate, yeah, currently I'm a fan of small. I'm a fan of affordable. So yeah, it's one of those locations that I don't think it would benefit from being bigger. Sure, it would. I guess it would be more impressive, in a sense, but you really you get a sense of the scale of it in the movie pretty well. So to have that just that smaller piece there, it's like you can't not look at it and then have that imagery, the imagery from the movie evoked in your mind and remember the massive scale of it. So you can make that leap in your brain pretty quickly just by looking at the piece. So I didn't, for me, I didn't, yeah, we've been well trained now by Weta to expect something grandiose and bigger because that's just kind of where they're going. But on the other hand, knowing that shelf space is shrinking and to bring something kind of back down a little into the realm of affordability and space, I think is great. So I want to see more of that. That's kind of the hope I have for the Grey Havens, to be honest. Even though, yeah, I mean, I have no idea what they're going with in terms like, do you get to see the whole bay? Like they've teased us with the ship, and are we going to see the hill with the part of the city and the harbor and the the bay with the hills on the side and the towers on the far end? They could go really crazy with this one. And if they include all of that, if you start to shrink things too much, then you kind of lose a lot of that detail. But I want it to look great and I want it to be too big. So if they can find a way to make those two come together, then that would be perfect for me. But I think the Black Gates are just perfect as they are. And for Minas Tirith, yeah, I think it's personally at the top of my list currently for environments is the newer Argonath. To me, that's the showstopper. But I do love the White City. I never got the original. I again, I have the Danbury Mint version, which I think is great. But now that I can actually compare the two side by side, I do see where the Danbury Mint piece kind of fails in a couple of respects. I still think it's awesome,
right,
but the Weta version is definitely superior. I'm sorry.
No, the Danbury Mint version is very nice. I mean, it's
Yeah,
very and for a long time, I mean, I thought the same thing. I thought that was the only one we were ever going to get was that. So it was like,
I know. So yeah, when the original one from Weta first came out, I thought I don't need this because I already got a pretty cool version that's limited, and you know, from the photos, it like, well, so they added a bit of the field and you get a little bit more of the mountain behind it, but I didn't feel the need at the time to get it. And then I kind of regretted it because once they released Minas Morgul and I got that, I'm like, oh, kind of wish I had the Weta version to kind of pair them up and just so they brought it back. It was a pretty easy decision to get it. And now the Dan Berryman version's for sale. So that's just the life of collecting.
Guys,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
those Avery Berador and Minas Tirith pieces, both are nice. I mean, I think the Danbury Minas Tirith is a nicer piece than the Berador version. Their Berador version, if I can spit it out. But oh god, yeah, like I said, I mean, when it's like I said, I would die on the hill of that being the best. I don't have the new Argonaut, just simply because I have the original, which I got lucky one day at work. Got in the car, thought I'm gonna check my email before I leave work, and they sent out and had, hey, we have a few of the Argonaut back. I'm like, ah, crap. So I ordered it before I even pulled out and went home after teaching one day. I was like, so I got lucky, but yeah, I mean, and the thing too with, like I said earlier, with the black gates, I don't know that it's just not an environment that needs to be huge. I mean, other than the towers on the ends of the gate would be bigger, and maybe they'd. I know some people I think complained that they looked kind of small. Those towers would be bigger. You could stretch the size out and maybe make it more size accurate for people that freak out about that. I don't see where it needs to be. It's just not a piece that. Why does a gate need to be massive? Why do we need a $500 gate?
The bigger you get that black gate, the harder it is to display because it's such a long, it's got a
So wide,
huge
yeah.
footprint. Like you're taking up
Yeah.
a lot of shelf
You'll
real
lose a whole
estate.
shelf if it's too damn big.
And so I can understand why they went with the size they did. It's a nice happy medium.
Earth makes sense. Helm's Deep makes sense. I can understand why they made a bigger version of Bag End. I can understand a little bit why they did a bigger version of the Argonaut to show off more of the Kings of Men. I can understand some of that. I don't need a $500 gate. I just don't.
Yes.
It's a cool piece. I'm glad. Perfect size and price for what it is. Yeah. And I think, so yeah, I'm not here for let's make it bigger. Why?
I gotta tell you guys, I was so hyped when I saw Minas Tirith had come back. I was so hyped. Like I didn't have Minas Tirith.
Like 3 or 4 years, 5 years now, however long it's been, it feels like.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years that I can remember lying in bed and thinking like, it's a limited edition. What if I started a letter campaign to like convince people like, hey, I'll write the letter. You just got to copy and paste it and send it to Weta customer service. And maybe we can show them there's enough interest to bring this back. And, that started out. And then I think they're like, look, we're tired of getting these emails. Let's just put a registration thing on our website. and they did it with all the open editions. It's gone now. I'm not sure if
probably blocked you after the second email.
I'm not sure if it survived though, like the website migration, that feature, but I was so hyped when I saw that had come out again. It was like, we did it, like the community, it was something that the community came together and we did it as a community. And I was so excited that it had come back.
I remember when Mike Gonzalez was in charge, he was in the head of Weta, the collectibles part at the time when it came out, and him and I were walking to the Flame party at Comic-Con with Weta the year that it came out. And him and I were talking about it, and he was like, "Yeah, it's going to be expensive, and people are going to be upset about the price a little bit and everything." And him and I were, kissing and discussing the price and everything, and it was people were put off by the price a little bit. Now, as they got it and got to see how cool it was, I mean, when you're at Comic Con, you're trying to take pictures of it, and I think those are actually some of the pictures of Minas Tirith are probably some of the best ones I've taken at Comic Con. It's a you try to show it off the best you can in that kind of environment with them being in display cases and stuff like that. And what is always great about opening the cases for me too, if I need to take pictures of those. You're still limited on what you can do in an environment like that. So, but people got a chance to see it in person, and I think it was pretty well received. But obviously, it wasn't a cheap price at the time. And people, I think, I don't know how much, I don't know how many sold, but obviously after a while, they closed it down. But then you get collectors that come in, or like with Valkyrist, who's like, I've got a nice version, I don't think I need it. Then they see another piece that is tied with it, and they're like, damn it, where those things happen. Or maybe you had never seen it in person. They went to their local comic book shop and they had it or something. I think that really helped that momentum for the campaign that you helped get going with that, because it's a really cool piece. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they brought it back. Like I said, I think, I understand why at some point they have to shut down the production of those. I get it. There's a cost to them keeping that line at the factory open to produce those.
Yeah.
But I am glad that for whatever cost it's costing them, that they brought that back, because it's just such an important place.
It's a great place in Middle Earth. It's one of the most,
it's just
awe-inspiring locations. And as a kid, I always gravitated more towards the cultures of Middle Earth that were mortal. The men, Rohan and Gondor. The elves for me were almost too ethereal, too angelic. It was like, I can't relate to that. And it didn't catch my eye like Gondor and Rohan did, and the magnitude and majesty of Minas Tirith was so impressive,
But I'm with you on that, because to me, and as I've said before in various places, I came into Middle Earth through the films.
Yeah.
So, the thing I gravitated more towards Gondor, Rohan, Gondor more than Rohan, but because of one, they all kind of seem standoffish. I'm just how they're written, how they're portrayed. They're kind of standoffish type people. The angelic quality, the godly quality. They're just like, here, and I'm not.
Yeah, it's hard to relate to them.
And I think, to me, with Aragorn being my favorite character, him being from Gondor, that helped. Just the nature of that type of leader, that type of individual, that's the qualities that I want to see. And so I just kind of gravitated that way. So yeah, I'm like I said, I'm team Gondor, type thing. So yeah, I'm glad that they brought it back and more people can snatch it, and hopefully nobody waits too long, because obviously they brought it back. I don't know that they'll keep it going for a super, super long time.
Right.
The second time, you better get it the second time, because
if you miss it the second time, it's your own fault.
There won't be a third. No.
I won't be doing a second campaign, guys.
Get it now, because as we've talked about already, OE pieces, yes, it means open edition. No, they don't tell us how many are produced.
Nope.
But if people hold on to them, that means they become limited edition on the secondary market, and you start paying an increased quality, like we talked about with Sam and Bill, or some of the mini statues. They can say OE. That's great. But if nobody's listening to them on eBay or your Facebook groups or whatever, they're a limited edition, and you're tracking down with everybody else that goes, damn it, I should have gotten it when it went up for order. I've got this piece that goes with it, or I saw it someplace and now I want it. Well,
that does bring up one thing that I don't know if you know anything about this, but does bug me that they don't um, give us some kind of inkling whether uh, wait, no, official, yeah, it should be official, really, to say that we are going to discontinue this product. So a heads up to the consumer, because I don't understand. I've tried to reason this many times, and I can't see why there is any reason why Weta, like what would they have to lose by letting us know? Like, okay, from the date of this announcement, there are 6 months, there are a year, there's whatever that you have an opportunity to still grab this piece. They probably there. I get that they're not going to tell us like, we have X number left, so get them before they're gone. But just to say we are discontinuing production. So between now and then, here's your chance to get it. And if there's a sudden rush and the piece does sell out, of course they're not going to like make another batch and then shoot themselves in the foot by having too much inventory left over. But I don't understand why they don't say that. Like, because you're just risking, like, it's like, oh, there's a new piece coming out, I want to get that, so I'll keep that other one on the back burner because I know I can get it one day, but before you know it, it could be gone. And then it's like, oh man, like if only I had known, Weta could have had my money. Like,
I know
why do they risk that?
I don't know, and I don't have a good answer to that. I mean, occasionally they'll put something in a newsletter, hey, this is almost gone type things, or whatever. But I know Sideshow used to do this back in the day, with exclusive pieces, especially. It wasn't always super accurate, I don't think. But like it would update every once, and say, hey, this is how many of this, like less than, it wasn't really specific, it wasn't less than 52 remain. It would be like less than 50 remain, less than 45 remain. Well,
Yeah.
what is less than 45? How much is that? 44? Is it 43? Whatever. Um, I don't know. I don't know. My guess is maybe it's hard. I don't know. Maybe I would think there would be, the system would be set up for them to know exactly, but it could be such influx. I don't know. That's a really good question. It would be nice to know, um, especially on more OE pieces. I mean, all the limited pieces now are a 1 week window, a 2 week window. You've got 2 weeks to decide. If you want it, great. If you don't,
Yeah.
you wait.
I mean,
After it's done and over with, and it's no longer available.
they
That's
have a built-in clock, yeah. So, but the
I,
other ones, I know they have the end of line status now, but that's still not very.
yeah. I
That could
wish.
also end at any moment, and
Yep. I wish they would do more with. I do. If I had a suggestion to with open edition pieces specifically, because like I said, obviously with the LE pieces, they're 2 week windows. But if you're 6 months from closing it down, say, hey, this piece is going to be done in 6 months, or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, I'm sure there's probably some licensing reason. Um,
Hmm.
Whatever would be my guess. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'm just spitballing because I don't know how licensing works exactly. I do know it's tricky with. I mean, that's why they can't. That's why they don't really announce what's coming, because if they did, like, I have teased a couple of things obviously on the board. I'm trying to be very careful about not teasing in a way that gives anything away. But if they tease something and kind of, or said, hey, Denethor is coming out in 2024, and something happens and they have to push him to mid 2025, 2026, people get hyped. And then maybe it's something along those same lines. But I mean, that's a good question. And it's not one I have an answer to. Sorry, I'm not much help on that. But I guess I'm assuming it's probably a production issue, as far as like maybe an agreement with the factory. It's a licensing thing. Right. I don't know.
Maybe it happens sooner for them than we actually know. Like, we like to think that there's, control and order and everything in the world, but that's not always the case. And it might just be like, someone picks up the phone and says, hey, like we got to let this product go to make room for this kind of thing. And,
Yeah, it could be one of those, hey, we're making Minas
Yeah.
Tirith, blah, 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 blah. Oh, crap. Now we're going to be making Minas Morgul. We got to stop making Minas Tirith because we need
Yeah.
that factory. We need that part of the factory to make this environment. So that's a good question. And actually, I would like to answer that because I think it'd be kind of interesting to know, if nothing else, just for giggles more than anything.
It could also just be a matter of the factory letting them know, hey, the molds for Minas Tirith are done.
And they do deteriorate over time. And so the cost to make these molds and to do them in the way that they're done now to make the quality that we are getting. I mean, if you go and look at Hill, if you go look at a Sildor, Aomir, those kinds of pieces that are just absolutely, Mouth of Sauron Steed, Sauron, Elbow and Bag End. Sorry, I could sit here and list a whole bunch of badass pieces I'm thinking about right now. But, how much quality those are turning into over the, where things were 20 years ago when I first started collecting. The molds to make those kinds of pieces are expensive, and they're a special kind of mold to do those. And the process to make them to teach the factory workers how to do them correctly. And everything. I'm sure there's probably I think Valkyries is probably pretty on the nose in that it's done well before we ever know, hey, listen, we're shutting down production on Minas Tirith, because they've already had to make that decision. It's already been basically shut down. The last few pieces are coming down the line, and the next thing coming down the line is the next thing that has to take that spot because they need the space, and the molds have deteriorated to the point it's not worth making more, because what they'd be sending out would be a problem, and having to deal with returns would be my I mean,
Right.
those are honestly, those two things to me make the most logical sense of.
Yeah, no, it sounds about right.
So let's move on to we talked briefly or a bit about the Master Collection, and so let's briefly offer our thoughts on it, and then we can move on to what we hope to see in 2024.
Okay.
So I thought the Master Collection, it was very good. That eagle looked like it was taxidermy. So huge props to Gary Hunt, who just probably was seeing feathers in his sleep for months, who worked on that. The lava, like the LED in it, just looks so cool. It looks great. I mean, you've seen it in person, Josh, so you'll be able to offer more insight on it. But I did think it was a very ambitious piece. I think it's I know some people kind of thought, well, they should have done it 1/6, and to hell with how big it is. It's the Master Collection. And I get that argument. I think it still looks great regardless. And a bit more practical. And, I really like the concept of it. I can remember watching the film and having Frodo and Sam on there, and it's kind of when they got their heads together, and it's like, I'm glad to be here with you at the end of all things. And I remember thinking that would make a great statue, just the two of them on that rock with the lava. And I remember suggesting it on face or on the flame there, and Daniel didn't really say anything, but he must have been like, did we got a mole? Did we got, like it was pretty close to the actual finished product. I'd never ever would have guessed though that they would have put an eagle lift, in that. I would have just been happy with the hobbits. And so for them to be like, you know what, we're going all out and we're adding eagle. I never saw that coming. So
yeah, it's well, a few inside baseball things, I guess. They did do a 1/6. They did apparently
I did hear that.
They did try to make one. They talked about that at the booth when they were unveiling it. And apparently it was too big to fit basically inside any kind of the doors that they had. So that's why they needed to make a 1/6. No. It would the shipping on. I mean, people complain about the shipping now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, 1/6 eagle ship to you?
Yeah.
Seriously?
One van per box.
This thing, it's like 3 or 4 feet wide.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Although I feel like if you can order the Master Collection, you can afford the shipping. You know, it's
Oh,
like if
that's
you're
also
griping about the Queen Studios Balrog and you're griping about the shipping or the life-size Infinity Sauron bust, it's like, well,
you
you just
probably-
bought like a $6,000 thing. I think you can spend that money on shipping, but
yeah, it's that, but yeah, it's like 4 feet wide, 3 feet wide, whatever. I mean, it's I can't wait for people to see it, to be truthfully honest with you, and get it in their houses because it's hard to take pictures of that thing and video of that thing and really, I think, properly capture the size of it
Hmm.
because it's just freaking huge. I mean, we're it's one thing to have a piece that's 4 feet vertical. It really is. You start talking about a piece that is several feet tall, but then it's 4 feet. It took, what did they tell me? Like 6 or 8 people to put the case over the eagle
Mhm.
to make sure they could get it over the eagle and down without messing it up.
Yeah.
So I mean, they had to be very careful with, and that's why I said earlier, as far as like, I was telling them, I'm like, you guys do not need to be pulling this thing through the event. It's crazy if you do,
Right.
because it's huge. It's beautiful. The feathers in person. I think I'd like to think I did a good job with the pictures. I'd like to think I did a good job with the video, but they really are. It is one of their best pieces ever. Like I said, I prefer the white tree and the fountain guard, but the eyes look like what you would expect from a taxidermist.
Mhm.
The feathers are fantastic. It's massive in scale. The likeness on Frodo and Sam is fantastic. Gandalf looks amazing. The lava, which by the way, if you go back and watch any of the video, mine or whoever's, they don't have the lava on at first. They actually had to flip the lava on. They didn't turn it on at first when they first unveiled it. They had to turn it back. They had to flip it real quick. However, they had to switch to turn on. The lava effect is really cool.
And it
It's
flows. It's not
yeah,
just like on,
yeah.
it's
The way the
flowing, which
yeah,
is
the
really
way
cool.
the LEDs are designed inside, the way that they have the electronics
Mhm.
makes that effect really cool. It is, and then you throw in the print with from Jerry, which obviously is right behind it. It's just like it's a beautiful print that goes with a beautiful piece. I think it's worth every penny that people are paying for it. I'm having even though it is a massively expensive piece, um, it's really cool. But I have no clue on where people are going to put this thing because Jerry's booth is not small. It's not a small booth. It's the biggest booth he's ever had at Comic Con. And it was a quarter of his shelf space that he had in front. I mean, at least a quarter, if not maybe a half. It's a huge, huge piece. So
Yeah.
not only have it that goes back because it's deep, you not only have to have it because it's tall because of the eagle, but like I said, it's like 4 feet wide. So
Mhm.
it's going to have its own space. And God bless you. And if you figure out where you're going to put that for those of you that are buying it, because
I do
it's
think this will be one that maybe sticks around or comes back up for sale, similar to Thranduil on Throne, because I think there's going to be a few people that order this and be like, holy crap, this is much bigger than I realized. I have nowhere to put this. It's just sitting in the box. I'm going to put this up for sale because I love the piece. I have nowhere to put it. I think
I
we're
can
going to
see
see
that.
a bit of that. Yeah.
Definitely,
Yeah.
for sure.
As far as myself, I mean, again, I made my thoughts known well in a previous episode. I can't really add much more than what you guys have already covered pretty well, other than to say, like, I confess to this being a pet peeve or annoyance of mine is when folks message boards or Flame of Wooden Forum, for example, could constantly cry out for, yeah, like you said, like this has got to be 1/6. Why can't we have the Fell Beast or Smog or the Balrog is another one that comes up quite often to make the 1/6. I'm like, please go back and watch that movie and compare the size of the creature that you're asking to come out in 1/6 scale to, and then get out your 1/6 Gandalf and get a sense of how much bigger that piece would be. And
It's 6 feet tall.
they say, well, whatever, that's not a problem. But yes, it is, because you need that space, and the cost is enormous. Like
I mean, this
Weta has to pay their employees. They're a business. They need to make money. There's a bottom line for them. And as much as we want the prices to be low, they have to be a certain amount in order for them to be profitable and stay in business. That's just the unfortunate reality. I don't like the prices, but this hobby it's a hobby. It's a luxury. It's not a necessity. It's not a must have. So we are subject to what they put before us and what they charge us for. And the bigger these things get, the more expensive they're going to be. So that's my way of saying that I wish I could personally buy one of these for every single one of those folks that constantly complain and ask for these things to be 1/6 or bigger. And okay, here it is. Here you have it. And it's not even 1/6. What are you going to do with it now? Do you realize, like, you get a sense of scope and scale that this requires? Can you please be more realistic in your constant requests to Weta? Because they're just, it's pie in the sky kind of thing. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they said at the booth, we prototyped. There is a 1/6 eagle apparently prototyped at the workshop. And when they're like, yeah, that's crazy, it wasn't gonna work. I understand Dave wants a 1/6 eagle from Lord of the Rings. I get it. But when Richard Taylor's going, that's a really bad idea. I'm gonna defer to the guy with more experience.
Exactly. I mean, I think most people have maybe room for one collectible like that in their collection. I mean, I'm one to talk here about, oh, don't ask for things too big. I have the 1/6 Treebeard, and he is absolutely massive, and he requires width, he requires height. Tyler was here; he's seen it in person. It's a big piece, and you need to make compromises and accommodations in your display. Like I have to have a box or a stand built, custom built for him. I had to order a module case from the other side of the world that was big enough to contain him. Yeah, it's just you don't have the space. You really got to be choosy. It sucks. I'd love to have both in my collection, but I can't. Like if I had to get that eagle, I would probably have to get rid of Treebeard. Like something has to give, and because yeah,
Well,
I mean,
when you get to those size of collectibles, I mean, I have the Sauron PF, and he's huge, and he takes up in my. I mean, he's on the floor in my display room because I don't have a case or something for him, and it would be massively expensive to do so. He's huge. I have the Prime One Gandalf versus Balrog. That thing is not tall, not small. The 6 scale Sauron is not small. The new Balrog is not small. Smaug is not small. The Smaug that's laying on the gold is not small.
Think of the premium, the Prime One Sauron. That thing's massive too.
I mean, you can't. I mean, it's great. I mean, as someone who loves the Balrog and someone who loves the Balrog, I would love. I mean, a 1/6 Balrog would be cool as hell. I'm not buying him. I don't have the room. My loved ones would kill me. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I help, take care of with some of my stuff with my folks and stuff. But so that's why I live with them still. But I'm pretty sure they would kick me out if I said, "Hey, by the way, bought this 1/6 Balrog. Here it is. It fits inside our front room. It's our friend."
Not everyone is understanding as Ben's wife, who has life-size Gandalf.
I'm living in the backyard, maybe in the shed in the back now. That's so I get it. I would love it too. It'd be fantastic. But like I said, when Richard Taylor's like, it's a really bad idea. Basically, we tried it. It wasn't feasible.
Listen, yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So I mean, do I love the fact the piece exists? Hell yeah. It's one of those that you really have to make some life decisions. Like, am I gonna have that thing come in my door and like think ahead? Like, where are you going to put that? It's a showstopper, but yeah, it requires
even more than
keep your distance.
with Treebeard. I mean, that's one of the things about going to Comic Con really over the years since they've been doing the Master Collection stuff outside of the COVID years where things were screwed up. Having gotten to see all of them in person, and for all the issues that Treebeard creates in a display vertically, and as you said, you had to get a special case, special stand for it. It's like with the PS song, what I would have to do. People don't understand that. This is why I think Tyler's spot on. There's going to be people that order this thing, and they're going to get it, and they're going to be like, "Oh," and it's not because they don't want it, because it is one of the best pieces Weta's ever done. I want to make sure people watching this episode understand. I am not hating this piece at all. I love this piece. I'm glad people didn't take pictures of me at Comic Con because I'm like, holy, this thing is cool. But it's not only tall, it's wide. It literally creates depth problems, vertical problems, and horizontal problems. It is the ultimate create an issue in your collection piece because I don't know where you're going to put it. You have to almost put it in a corner of a room at an angle, or it has to be in the center of your room with the ability to walk around it and have space. It can't go on a bookshelf. It can't go in a display cabinet. You either have to have a stand for it, you have to go to IKEA or wherever you buy your furniture and get a kitchen table to put this thing on. Be lightly kidding when I say kitchen table. Buy yourself a coffee table or something, I don't know, and put it on there because it's just it. So I think people are going to do that. I think they're going to order it. I think they're going to get it, and they're going to realize I don't have the space for it because it is one of the most massive pieces I have ever. I'll say that it is the most massive piece I've ever seen Weta do. I've never seen them do anything bigger. It's that level. And I mean, there's a reason it costs $3,000 because it's huge and it's worth the price. But you better be Ben, and you better have that kind of display space.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are you guys hoping to see in 2024? What are you guys looking forward to the most? I'll say one word. Death.
Your dog got excited for
yeah. Theoden on Snowmane is what I'm really looking forward to seeing. You know, we know he's coming. It's a shame he didn't quite make the cut this year. But you know, I'm sure it's for a good reason. I would rather Weta delay him a little bit and get him perfect than, you know, bring him out before he's ready. Because, you know, we've waited, well, some of you guys have waited 20 years. Some of you guys have waited 5 years. You know, like it's a piece I've been looking forward to getting is, you know, since I've started collecting and knowing, well, if they bring him out, it's going to be Return of the King 20th anniversary. And, you know, and so I was a little disappointed we didn't see him this year, but I know he's coming and I know he's probably coming pretty soon. So what are you guys hoping to see this coming year?
Wow.
Valkyrus, you don't have room for anything, so don't even bother.
Well, I might have a thing or two to say, but let Josh go.
I mean, obviously, Théoden definitely is there. I mean, Valkyrus, I know you don't post a ton on the board, which, by the way, you need to just come back and start posting. I mean, seriously, it's time. Come back. But you know, Ty, so I know you probably lurked and maybe seen some of my posts. Tyler, I know, has seen some of my posts. So
yes.
I'm saying it on Snowmane because I mean, obviously, I think that one's been pretty hinted by in places where it's like kind of known that one's probably coming. But obviously, as I've teased a few things, means I know a few things. So
don't feel like we're putting you on the spot here.
No, but I would say Théoden on Snowmane is definitely one. Anything Gondor related. I'm I'm looking forward to seeing what people think of the Grey Havens when they see it. Like I said, I think that one's beautiful. Absolutely. I will say that I wasn't sure I was going to order it, but I'm ordering it. So I'm looking forward I'm looking forward to seeing some of the stuff that I know about. I guess I'll put it this way. I'm looking forward to seeing the physical representations of some of the stuff that I know about. It's looking forward to seeing people's reactions to the thing. To now, some of the stuff is like Aragorn and Arwen are out, so you guys know about those and stuff like that. Obviously, Grey Havens has been teased, so those aren't secrets anymore. But there's still a few things on the infamous list that I've mentioned a couple times that haven't been, and I'm looking forward to seeing reactions to those. So I guess that's my answer, is that I'm looking forward more to seeing the reactions to people's stuff, whether or not it's or Theoden on Snowmane or whatever. So yeah. That's that for me is probably I'm just looking forward to seeing what 2020. I'm looking forward to, maybe even things I don't know about. So, but I'll say if I say one piece that we all kind of know about at this point with Theoden on Snowmane, just because that's a piece that, for kind of like with Tyler with Minas Tirith, I have been every Comic Con for freaking years, and somebody, whether or not it's Leonard, Daniel, whoever, like, hey, this, and especially before we got Éomer, I'm like, you do know the horse people do not have a horse and rider statue in the rider. Really Theoden or Éomer on a horse.
Yeah.
And I was more thinking Theoden before Éomer, really. So yeah, so I've been like you. I'm like you. I'm like, let's get a horse person on a horse. Oh, and real quick too, Daniel's story to tell you, we were talking about with the eagle and stuff, and Daniel, several years ago, before, just as they were relaunching the line, we were leaving. My dad and I were leaving Comic Con, so we stopped by Weta's booth and we're saying our goodbyes before we went back and packed and got ready to fly back here to Kansas City. I stopped and was talking with Daniel. We were conversing again about something we had talked about the night before at the Weta party. And I had told him then, I'm like, now that you guys have the line back, you need to do another Balrog, because that other one's really expensive. And he would tell me afterwards, after it had been announced, he goes, it took everything in me not to just grin and laugh at the table when you're asking for that, because it was already done and in the works and stuff. So yeah, he does that. He's the most excellent. I would not want to play poker with that man, because he would take. So that's my long story short. Again, Squirrel. I'm sorry. You're gonna watch this episode and go, does this dude ever? But my answer is Theoden on Snowmane if we have to pick a piece that kind of people know about. But I just can't wait to see what the physical representations and reactions to some of this stuff is.
Yeah. Cool. Well, for me, yeah, Tyler's not wrong. He's seen the room. He knows he can barely move in there. But I mean, still, and I think I know now that it's probably not going to happen. And there have been whispers from certain folks, but I think I'm coming to terms with the fact that we'll never get a Denethor from Weta, at least, sadly, for various reasons.
I don't think so. I'm going to say this right now. I don't know, for anybody watching and thinking, oh my God, he's not teasing anything. I do think Denethor will get made eventually. I really do. That is just my gut feeling. So
are you feeling your heart? Okay.
Don't close that door, is what I'm telling you. And I don't know anything, again, for people watching this. I'm not teasing.
I mean, hey, if you want to give me hope, consider it given. It's just said this many times in many places. It baffles me that such a, dislike him however you much for his character, and like, let's face it, it was not he was not someone to love in that movie, that's for sure. But to me, it's about the width and breadth of everything being represented. Like, if you can have Sauron in your collection, how could you not? I guess it's harder to relate to something like Sauron,
Yes, Denethor
in a
is like
sense.
a he's
Yeah, he's a
I
human
don't want to
being
call
with
him
some
evil,
very,
but it's something
yeah,
that you and I could relate to, you know. How many people could relate
exactly.
to
Yeah.
maybe a stepdad that didn't love you like their own, or an abusive uncle or father figure, you know. Denethor is
Hey, no,
something
no.
you and I can all relate, you know, many people
Don't
can
get me
relate to.
wrong. Every time I watch those movies, I cringe when the man comes on scene. I think that's a testament to how good of an actor John Noble
Oh
was,
yeah,
and
he
with
did a
with
phenomenal
Peter
job.
Jackson's direction and everything involved that just went into making him just so utterly unlikable. It doesn't mean I want that doesn't stop me from wanting a statue of
He's
such an important character represented in my collection. And I think it's a glaring omission, much like Eomer was for years. And they finally filled that gap. They finally gave us Faramir. A lot of the pieces that Sideshow Weta never got around to, they've slowly kind of filled out that roster. And it just baffles me that they continue to miss this one character. And I always joke around on the forums that John Noble must have done something really bad to Richard Taylor one day on set. Richard Taylor said, "We are never making a statue of this man. That is my edict
He,
as owner of this company
he did
forever and ever."
he
So
did
far, he has
debunk that
not
though.
proven me wrong. I still want to know what dirt those two men have on each other. But
really is an odd choice. I mean, that's the thing that, yeah, that puzzles me. It's like,
mhm,
surely he would. I mean, as a even if they just did a classic series fig, you know,
yeah, I would think that would be the perfect vehicle for it. But
little
they
humble.
must feel that there's not enough appeal, just like the
Yeah.
hobbits, that there's not enough appeal in the character because of his the issues with his depiction, that they may think it's too much of a niche. But I don't know, maybe a limited edition would be better because they don't have to commit to having, open production on a statue that is not going to move. But for various reasons, 20 years later, we continue to miss the man. But moving beyond that, I think for me, and as filled out as my collection feels in many respects, I would love for them to visit all of the Fellowship characters in the classic series. We still have, more than half of them missing at this point. Um, and I mean, as far as environments go, I think they've, now with the addition of the Grey Havens and the Black Gates, they're pretty much running out of locations that are, to use a term I think is overused, iconic in the movies or in the books. And I think, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe Cirith Ungol would be
Here
a
Thungal.
nice one
Yeah.
that they could still get around to making. Uh, I've always wanted a Mount Doom. I don't know how well it would translate to a small environment, but I think they, like, especially with LEDs and the lava, they could really make, you know, a version of that that would be quite cool. But lastly, and I know a lot of people dislike or tend to pile on the Hobbit movies, but I really like Dol Guldur, and I think that would make for an amazing, very fragile, very intricate looking environment, especially if they did something with the lighting, kind of like similar to Minas Morgul. It's very atmospheric, and I really like the way it was depicted in the movie. Very
Goblin
complex looking.
going Hobbit, Goblin Town would be cool. That would be cool. That would definitely be cool.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one too. But yeah, so that's my mini wish list for the future.
What?
I will. I'll add in the Lord of the Rings environment real quick too, and that I would like to see. And no, I'm not. This was not on my list. I want a new Moria.
Oh yeah.
And there needs to be a new Moria. I've told Weta that. When Daniel's been on, when Leonard's been on, I'm like, y'all need to do another Moria. We need a new version of it. I love the one that I have, but
Mhm.
you have to really kind of look at it to see
Yeah,
anything. Big
Mhm.
rock.
that's such a tough one because there's so much of it.
Give me a
How
cutaway.
big would you make it? What do you focus on? Do you revisit the older one and just make it bigger? I always thought maybe like just we've gotten the what do you call it? The west gate.
Yeah.
How about making the other door? That would
Yeah.
be cool, kind of like the gate to Erebor environment, like having just
Yeah. I've thought of that before too. Yeah.
the east gate would be cool. Just maybe just doing the chamber of Mazar Bul, but then like do
But
you add characters in there? That would have been great if they had maintained the that 130 line that
Oh,
they
yep.
did with, yeah, that would have been perfect if the line had taken off. I could totally see them doing that, like just like the Iron Studios went that route, but slightly bigger. But anyways, I digress.
I could,
Yeah, Moria would be cool, but
yeah.
it'd be tough, I think, to go back to.
It's more just certain locations in Moria. How do you do all of Moria? But if you broke
Mm,
it down into certain locations, and I know like Annie has done the three doors, it was supposed to be an
yeah,
add-on to
where
that
Gandalf
Gandalf mini,
stops.
but that would be a cool piece, or like you said, the East Gate or the bridge, just the bridge of Khazad-dûm. That's a pretty important location in Moria, or
Holland's
this,
tomb area. You could do a big
yeah,
Holland area. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of cool things you could do in Moria. I
Mhm.
would also like to see them simply, you mentioned the Erebor environment. I think the Paths of the Dead entrance would make a cool environment like that, where
Mm,
it's just the front of it, um, like this, but
Mm.
um just do the Paths of the Dead entrance. I think that would make a pretty cool environment. I'd love to see Edoras.
Yeah.
Um,
A new Edoras.
oh,
And that's one that, again, go back to the discussion earlier, part of the discussion. That's one that needs to be a little bit bigger,
yeah.
a little bit more detailed. That's one that calls for an upscaled version versus like we
Yeah.
said with
That one
which
seems inevitable. I think they will visit that. Even Dunharrow, I think with the winding stair going up and the Pukelman, and I think that would make for a cool environment.
mhm.
Um, I could definitely see us getting this year a Witch King, a new Witch King. I think there's a bit of an oversaturation this year. There's so many other companies that did, you had Dark Side, you had Prime One, you had Infinity, you had that life-size bust of the Witch King. Like there's a lot of Witch King out there right now, and I could see perhaps Weta's already finished a Witch King, and they're just waiting to release it because it's so oversaturated right now.
Mm.
Um, I could see Sam versus Shelob
yeah.
coming out next year as a premium piece. Um, Going off of some of Josh's hints, I could see a King of the Dead, uh, a new take on him, and it would be pretty cool if they could maybe add some glowing effects with some translucent resin.
I would
Uh,
imagine a new King of the Dead would be kind of like the mini one that they did. You know
yeah,
how it would kind of clear the clear resin on some of the spots. I would imagine a bigger one would be like that. Yeah.
um, in the mini line, I could definitely see them doing um the Moria cave troll. We've gotten the Balrog, we've kind of gotten the Fell Beast, we've gotten some of these creatures. I could definitely see the Moria cave troll. And if they did that, I would love to see the Siege of Gondor. There's so many different trolls used throughout. I'd love to see them do that, where we
Oh,
have the Grand trolls and the catapult troll and the attack troll. I think that would be a really cool addition to the mini line. I don't see that happening next year, but um, I could see the cave troll from Moria next year. Um, those were kind of some, yeah, Witch King, Sam versus Shelob, um, the Moria cave troll were some of the,
Mhm.
and King of the Dead. I could see happening next year. It's exciting though. You know, um, we could probably talk. We could talk for a whole nother hour on stuff we'd like to see. I'm already getting
Yeah.
things like the Chariots of Fire, Eric at Helm's Deep. I think that would make for a very cool
Mm.
of him. A couple of years ago, and
that
Weta
now
went.
that we have
Yeah, now that we have the ball, like when it went through that kind of dynamic phase with their sculpture, kind of when The Hobbit was, like Elrond and Saruman, they're very dynamic. They're moving, you know. I think the berserker that lights the torch would make a very cool statue if they could do him leaping, kind of like Gollum
Oh,
from
yeah,
The
yeah,
Hobbit.
yeah.
If they had the berserker leaping into the culvert with his torch outstretched, I think that would make a very cool statue. Or Shagrat, the the warg rider. I'd love to see a new warg. It's been 20 years since we've had a warg.
Yeah, we haven't had a bad guy on a rider. I mean, we had the. I mean, I take that back. There was the ring wraith at the Ford, but we
Yeah.
haven't had an orc on a steed of any kind since
Azog?
Oh, Azog. Yeah, that's right. That's true. Azog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking Lord of the Rings. I was thinking
Yeah, but
Lord
Lord of the Rings wise, there hasn't been a warg since Gothmog on warg. So I'd love to see that, And I was kind of thinking we might have seen some of that stuff for the Two Towers. But it didn't happen, but that's not to say that it can't be released next year, as we saw with Lurtz and Frodo. That was a holdover, significant time-wise from the Fellowship. So I think that would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think you could. Well, this is kind of like why I said I want to have you guys on when we get closer to Comic-Con, and go over, because I mean we could sit here and probably talk for a couple, 2 or 3 hours really about different pieces that like that are a possibility or something. Because I mean, environments, I think really like Valkyrie said, I think we're running out, other than like that haven't been done. Period. There's I think we're running out of locations that might generate a bunch of sales. There's things you could do like Adoris, which needs to be done at a larger scale and everything, but not every environment needs to have its big, have a bigature essentially made, as is the case with the Black Gates. But yeah, that's what do you want to see is probably an episode of
It's a completely on episode on its own
for either you guys or Jim and I just sitting down and just cussing and discussing, so to speak. But because it's just there's a lot of characters left really, and it just all varying of how much they might actually sell, and do we think they get them, and some characters that need updating and stuff like that. Yeah, it's I mean, like you said, with like your guess with King of the Dead, the original is okay. It's a nice piece, but after having seen what they did with that mini one, I'm like, that needs a bigger version, because the clear resin and the way that they did it, it looked really cool.
Can you imagine if they put like a skeleton inside and cast clear res? I don't know if this is possible, but like clear resin around it, so you could kind of get like the skull effect that he has.
Yeah.
And if you look at it one way, and if you look at it another way, he's got more of the rotting flesh. That would be really cool.
That would be cool. That would be very cool, actually.
Yeah.
You could leave it out at Halloween, so that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought maybe this year, if they were going to do it, I thought, well, October would have been perfect for the King of the Dead, but it didn't happen. So maybe next year. But yeah, there's so many things they could do that we could be talking about this 20 years. For 20 years, they have enough
No.
for another 20
More
years.
than enough to keep themselves busy with. I mean, just in revisiting characters alone, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't always like that. I said, oh man, we need another Aragorn, another Gandalf, but it's what makes money. It provides them with the income to produce maybe lesser known, take a risk on some other pieces that we might not necessarily see. So we can't always knock down the fact that, oh, here comes Gollum again, kind of thing, because
Yeah.
Well, the Golems and the Aragorns and the Gandalfs,
They sell.
they sell, and I think that's a spot on way of
the
looking.
bread makers.
You don't get those guys, and they don't sell. Yeah, it does close the door, I think, on ever getting a Denethor.
Yeah.
Denethor's not going to sell super amazing, probably, but if they sell a boatload of Aragorn, Gandalfs, and Golems, they can maybe take a smaller profit run on a Denethor for folks like the three of us that want that character in our collections.
Or
So-
a Numenorian from the prologue.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, he might have a better chance at selling a little bit better than Denethor because I
It's
say
cool.
that because
They're cool.
they're cool looking. The armor's cool. There's people that will buy them because they like armor.
Hmm.
So, but even a character like that needs some help. But even characters like that in general, if they sell well enough, help a Denethor get made. So I'm
Mhm.
always like, I mean, even if it's a character that I don't want, I mean, or I have plenty of, and I'm gonna pass on. Make it. I hope it sells because I want this character, and that character, and those get to have a chance to get made. If the guys and gals before it that got made, oh well. So whatever. If somebody else is happy because they made a 47 Gandalf, cool. Because
Or
if Denethor gets made, that means I finally got one that I didn't have in my collection. So
yeah. Or even now just the creative juice. And as I mentioned this before too, like a fell beast. You know how they did the new smog? I'd love to see a fell beast in that scale.
Yeah.
And
I would
that's
buy a fell beast in that kind of a scale. Yeah.
yeah, and that's that scene where Faramir's Rangers are retreating back to Minas Tirith and they're being harried and harassed. And it's such a cool shot. And it's always stuck with me when that one fell beast comes down and it's got its claws out and it just wrecks like 5 or 6 horses and it comes right into the camera. It's such a cool shot. They could do something like that where the fell beast has like 2 horses in its claws and that's how it's anchored. So the fell beast is completely in the air and it's anchored to the base through these horses. I think that would make for a very cool. I think it would sell well because there isn't really a fell beast statue out there other than the little one and the new mini. I can't, and the bust. There's the bust, but I can't really think of like a fell beast statue in the same way as Smog has been done.
Right. Yeah, that's yeah, those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head, but that would be cool. Yeah, he would have to, and that's the thing too, people with like the master collection piece. When you do these winged creature pieces, whether or not it's the second Smaug that was done or whatever, they have to be anchored in a way because you can't just have them floating.
Yeah.
That's like when I was talking to the Weta guys at Comic Con about like with the eagle, and they were explaining the reason they did what they did with it is because it has to be anchored in a way to the base. You can't just have him floating because then there's instability in over time leaning, even if it's got a metal rod in it. It's why like we were talking about him a minute ago, the Azog on Warg. That's one of the reasons why that guy is so heavy. He has a steel frame inside of him to keep him from having problems. So you have to do things like that when you get, when you do crazy poses. So you can have a really heavy fell beast, I guess, if you want it to, but it's got to be anchored in a way to where over time you don't walk in your room and it just fell over one day because gravity won and it finally fell over. It's got to be anchored so it's safe.
Yeah.
So
or even and now maybe this will annoy Val, but the this is my hour, because then you can have his wings folded in and he's perched on the battlements or he's perched on Minas Tirith, right? It's not as dynamic, but it is a pretty recognizable scene moment. And I'll say it's pretty badass too, with the sword in the air on fire. It's a pretty cool scene. So that's another option for a fell beast.
A few moments later, when he's on the ground before Eowyn chops his head off, where the witch and you could cover like you were talking about with another Witch King. You could have the Witch King kind of sort of, how he kind of he's got his back turned and he kind of does that turn, and you see in a lot of action sequences with like he just kind of turns and he's kind of got his back, he's partially turned, and you've got the fell beast. You could do even somewhat decent size there with the Witch King as kind of a premium or master collection piece. That would and he would be anchored to the base. So you could do something like that too. For people that want a larger fell beast.
Yeah, definitely. But at
the risk
of us rambling on for another hour,
which we could easily do.
I think I will say thank you for joining us, everybody, and thanks for coming on, Josh. It was
Thanks,
great to
man.
have you on here. And
Pleasure.
if you guys haven't seen Josh's channel, it's Collecting the Precious. We recommend it. He's got some great interviews with some folks from Weta and some statue reviews, and give his channel a visit. And we hope you had a great 2023. I know we did, and we're looking forward to what Weta and the rest of these companies are bringing out in 2024. It's going to be exciting. It's not an anniversary year, but we're going to have anniversary pieces still that just didn't make the cut for 2023. So we're looking forward to it, and we hope you guys have a great year, a happy new year, and we'll see you online, and we'll take care.